Welcome, everyone, to TJ and the Grumpy Old Man, a twice a week All Islanders podcast. I'm your host, TJ, and with me here, as always, is our NHL analyst and expert, the Grumpy Old Man. They say there's no shame to his game because he's always the same.
That's me.
Grumpy, how are you doing on this fine Saturday evening?
Nice. Got myself a little haircut today.
Okay, got a little
Desperately
haircut.
needed. Desperately needed.
I understand, Grumpy. I understand. I'm not far behind. But welcome. Good to hear you're doing well. For those who are new to the podcast, again, as I mentioned, it's a twice a week All Islanders podcast that takes place every single Wednesday and Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if it's your first time watching this show, listening to the podcast, following along live, however you've found and stumbled across our show, welcome. We open you with warm arms. There's a few things we ask for you. If you like the content that we put out, we ask for you to subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss out on any of the future episodes and the future podcasts that we do. And we also ask for you to like the video. If you like the video, number one, it helps the algorithm. Number two, it also lets Grumpy and I know that you like the content that we're putting out. So make sure to leave a thumbs up in addition to subscribing if you like the content. Now, the one other piece of, I guess, housekeeping item to cover before we jump into today's show, we do have a secondary podcast called TJ and the Grumpy Old Man. It's a twice a week all sports podcast. It takes place every single Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and every single Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You could find that in the link in the description below, or as a featured page here on our YouTube channel. You can find TJ and the Grumpy Old Man. And you can find that we talk anything and everything sports on that show. It's a show where myself, the Grumpy Old Man, the Magnificent Son X, just talk anything and everything sports. We talk NHL, we talk NBA, MLB, college athletics, NFL, world football. We talk anything and everything sports on that show. So make sure to give that a check out and a listen to if you want to get away from the Islanders. You want to take a little vacation. You want to take a little all-star break away from the Islanders for a few days. Make sure to check out the TJ and the Grumpy Old Man show. But right now we are during the NHL All-Star weekend or All-Star break weekend. So, good and bad, no Islanders news to report on. Well, I won't say that quickly. There was some news that happened just, I'd say, yesterday or the day before, regarding the New York Islanders to cover. But we'll bring that up here. Julien Gauthier has been waived by the New York Islanders.
That's another one in the win column for the TJ and Grumpy Old Man show.
Well,
here's the podcast. If management thought he was that great, guess what? He would have been placed on waivers. Was he picked up?
Was that? I'm sorry.
Was he picked up by anyone?
Wow, what a shock! Julien Gauthier was not picked up.
No, because he's a freaking ham and egger. That's why. Lamanites 0. Grumpy Old Man 1. That's just tonight. I'm keeping score now.
Oh, there it is.
I'm going to be keeping score. You want to say ridiculous, stupid things on our show? You're getting called out.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, here's the thing.
Not TJ. You want to know how you lose an argument? By lying about your age to try to prove something. Yeah. That's how you know you're defeated.
Yes. Well, let's go ahead and take a dive, right? Julien Gauthier has been waived. I don't think there's really anything we lose there on that side, right? And people could not stop, even on social media, couldn't stop clamoring about, oh, great. Oh, my gosh, if we were playing him in the lineup more often, look at the point production he's had. He's been so fantastic. Look at hockey analytics point A, B, and C. This guy deserves to be in the lineup every single night. Well, here's the thing. Julien Gauthier, just like, he was a free agent pickup this offseason. I mean, anybody could have had him. Anybody could have prioritized him. I won't say nobody did, but he was not a highly fought after and vied after free agent because he signed for next to nothing with the Islanders, and he's been waived since that point. We heard all offseason long about, oh, this is a really sneaky signing by Lou Lamoriello. The Lamanites love that. They loved to tout how great of a signing this was.
He's a 0. It's like most of the acquisitions by the old man. He's a 0.
He's a bottom 6 guy.
Replaceable by anyone else.
That is the quintessential point of this. When we start treating guys who are bottom 6 players and we start acting as if those are guys that we cannot afford to lose. We can't afford to ever separate with a bottom 6 guy. It doesn't allow you to have these great signings like Julian Gauthier find a way in the lineup because there's only guess what 6 spots available in your bottom 6.
I just want to say that's the one good thing about what I felt was a good thing with Patty Waugh coming in as the coach, a fresh set of eyes,
Sure.
not somebody who's just lived in the little Islander bubble where their vision is like this. Nothing can be wrong with the team. We're going to be Stanley Cup champions. I believe in this group. A fresh set of eyes. Look what's happened already. And great. Fantastic. I said that's what this organization needs.
Sure.
Desperately. And I'm glad it's already 4 games in. He's already made decision number 1. Because believe me, that wasn't a Lamoriello decision. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I'd say probably not also. I'm going to say probably that's Patrick Waugh relaying, I'm never going to play this guy. And here's the thing. I think probably Casey Zizekas is back healthy is what I assume is going to. I assume, right, somebody's coming back healthy. They need a roster spot available. He's the odd man out. That's what I assume has happened.
For me, I think maybe Patty Waugh has more input than we think.
And maybe he has.
Or maybe he has some input, if I'll just put it that way.
That's what I say. Maybe he has some say. And that's all we really want. Is a different ideology and upstairs, right? And somebody else who, maybe could help lead us on the right path. If Patrick Waugh is a guy that they're going to listen to, right? And you got a new set of eyes on there, it's reasonable to think that change could occur then.
At least
if Patrick Waugh is going to be a new thought from the outside in and he has some sort of input, there's reason to believe that change can happen at that point.
At least the most input and power he's going to have, unless he takes over the GM spot like I'm pining for, is right now when he first joins a team. The last thing you want to do is alienate a coach that you just brought in. It's not like they can fire Patty Waugh this year or even in the off season, right? He'll be here next year. There's no way you're dumping him after 39 games or however 43 games that he would have coached in this year. There's just no way.
Sure.
So hopefully that's a harbinger of good things to come. At least that's my hope anyway. Like I said, anything to change the existing failed paradigm of the Lamoriello regime. And that's what it is, a failed regime. At the end of the day, you don't win a Stanley Cup, you don't win an Eastern Conference title, you don't win a division title in 6 years, failed. Absolutely failed.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily as black and white as that.
I do.
I think there have been successes that he's had, absolutely, as a general manager. Well, I'm just more talking about with what he's done, right? The big things that he's done, we've talked about in the show plenty of times. He brought legitimacy back to this team, which has been a laughing stock for the better part of 2+ decades. He brought over Sorokin, which never would have happened with the laughing stock of the organization that we had beforehand. Wouldn't happen with Gar Snow at the helm. Wouldn't happen with
any other GM might have been able to bring him over.
Maybe, but I will say, right, Lou Lamoriello
did get that done.
Would not have happened under Garth Snow, right? Wasn't like Lou identified the talent, drafted the talent. None of that happened. Lou just brought the legitimacy by in turn, which brought over Sorokin. So that's a plus, obviously, in the Lou column. The longer he stays here, the longer I just feel like it could be potentially catastrophic for him, right? And if GMs don't have an infinite shelf life, head coaches don't have an infinite shelf life. Just because you sign a job there and just because you're going to be there, and trying to help the team win a Stanley Cup, doesn't mean you're guaranteed a lifetime position. Because great, we made it to back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals, right? There's something to be appreciated with that, and I think that we do, and the fan base is appreciative of that. But you get to a point to where the pendulum swings. You say, "Oh gosh, okay, that happened a while ago. What are you doing for me now?" And that's how all sports are. It's what have you done for me lately? type of profession. That's what professional sports are, ladies and gentlemen. So, I'll say this here. If Patrick Waugh has more say so than what we think, or more say so, right? He wants no input on player personnel decisions. He doesn't want anything like that. Again, that could all just be head coach speak. That's what caused him to leave his prior job in Colorado. He was the GM and head coach and the
He was
Quebec.
vice president of player development, or
He
vice
was the
president of
general manager. He had stopped. He had taken a step back this year, but he was the head coach and GM in a Quebec major junior team that he was coaching for.
Okay.
So that was last year.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah. So he was right in Quebec. He had much more of a hands-on role. A lot of those people in Quebec do. And maybe he's going to be listened to. I would be happy with that. We've talked about it before. Patrick Waugh and the mentality the mentality he has, I think, could break up the country club mentality that this team is infested with. And that is, I think, the greatest accomplishment that Patrick Waugh can have with this current iteration of the team, is breaking up the country club mentality, Grump.
Yeah. Well, like I said, my hope, the old man's gone at the end of this year. Patty Waugh is the new GM, and hopefully this is just a harbinger of good things to come. Like I said, Lamoriello served his purpose, brought legitimacy back to the organization.
Sure.
Hired Barry Trotz, signed Sorokin.
That's another thing I didn't mention. Bringing in Barry Trotz was absolutely a big win for Lou Lamoriello, and potentially the hiring of Patrick Waugh could be a big win for Lou Lamoriello as well.
Particularly if it leads to his own firing, I think it was a great move. But also you could say maybe bringing Horvat in, even though these are going to be this year and maybe the next couple are going to be the gravy years for Horvat and Barzell. But to me, the big downside for Lou Lamoriello is just hamstringing the team against the cap year after year after year. Horrible trades for the most part, which nets you nothing but ham and eggers, third liners on good teams. Somehow they're elevated because we don't have the offensive talent on this team. Everything that I'm stating here is a fact. These are not opinions, by the way. These are facts because we've seen it proven out over years and years and years. So, I mean, those are just facts. And a lot of people can't handle facts, but that's what I deal in. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, again, Grumpy, it's not good when you start trying to get on that pedestal, because it brings me away from your point you're trying to make. So please, let's just try to keep it. Okay. When we talk about what he's done right, I think you could give him credit absolutely for Bo Horvat, even though he would have been an unrestricted free agent this offseason or last offseason, right? The trade, and we signed him, right? I think Bo Horvat has been absolutely a plus for this team. I think he's absolutely been a net positive, no doubt about that. I was ultra critical of him at the beginning, but absolutely has been a net positive, right? He has shown this year that last year's career performance in a contract season was not just that blip and an anomaly in his stat sheet in his professional career. He's followed that up with a very strong campaign here this year with us, and I think he's done a fantastic job. I think that's definitely a plus for Lamoriello. Could have maybe gotten him in free agency, but hey, we got it done no matter what. So I think you got to give him credit for that. But you start looking at, right, so there's a good that happened last year. Congratulations, hats off. And Patrick Waugh could potentially be a good. But you start looking at some of those bads, right? You talked about how you're hamstringing the team with long-term contracts, right? I don't think anybody who listens to the show or supports the Islanders thinks that Scott Mayfield deal that we've got, this year and then 6 more years remaining on, that's going to age well. I don't think anybody's saying, yeah, let me sign up for more Scott Mayfield. I don't think anybody's saying after Pierre Engvall this season, yeah, I'm liking the way that's looking for Pierre Engvall. I'm glad we've got him for another 6+ years, 6.5 years, including this year that's halfway over. You start looking at things like that, you're like, oh shit. Okay, there's a lot of bad mixed in with some of the good.
Okay, mostly bad. Mostly bad. He's crippled the franchise going forward. That's what he did. He thought we could win a cup with this group. I didn't from day one. From day one, I said they should blow the team up immediately when they came in. Why? Because the fan base who've been downtrodden for years and years and years could live through another rebuild as long as you had Lamoriello and Trotz there. That was from day one of those hires. And I've been steadfast in my belief, and I've been proven right. That's my issue. It's like all you need is our eyes to see, honestly. I don't, like I said, I never thought this team was good enough. They had maybe a shot after the first Tampa year, and he didn't do anything. That was their one shot, and he wouldn't roll the dice. And still the same cores here with really marginal improvements. And the just trading for guys and signing them to 7-8 year deals is not a way to be successful in the long term, particularly when those players are not superstars. And they're just not.
Yeah, it's you look at
as everyone knows, I like Bo Horvat. Liked him from the day we acquired him. I've always liked him as a player. But we talked about him on the show. Varlamov, Parise, Scott Mayfield, all should have been dealt at the deadline last year. You could have brought them back.
If they really wanted to be an Islander that bad, they would have come and signed back to be an Islander. If it really was, I love the island, I love playing for the New York Islanders. Well, then, right? If you let it free and it comes back to you, it's yours. But if it doesn't, well, then maybe we've got some false words behind it. You know, you got to maximize the draft capital you have.
No one was going to give a 7-year deal to Scott Mayfield.
Correct.
No one.
Correct.
No one was going to give a 4-year deal to a 35-year-old backup goaltender in Varlamov. And Varlamov's played well this year. No one's giving a guy like that at 35 a 4-year contract extension at $3.75 million to be a backup. Just not happening. And the same thing with who's the last guy? Mayfield. Parise. 3rd-round pick you could have got for Parise, right?
Well,
who cares if he came back? Your team is filled with Zach Parises.
Well, Grumpy, we didn't want to get rid of him because remember, just at the end of last season, he said it's the Islanders or nowhere. I'm signing with the Islanders or I'm not coming back.
Who cares what that's where the players go. The players go, first of all, number one, money. That's number one. They want to get paid, particularly guys at that age. They want to get paid and they want to have a shot at a Stanley Cup. That's why he wasn't coming here. He knew it.
For those who haven't paid attention, yeah, Zach Parise went ahead and signed with Colorado. I know probably didn't get to talk about that much on last bombastic podcast. But yeah, he went ahead and signed with Colorado. Didn't sign with the Islanders. So again, you know, what have you done essentially? You just let a guy's contract run out, expire on your watch, and receive nothing back in return for an asset that had value. And then just said, see you later. I mean, that's just what we like to call poor asset management by the team.
That's the general manager, not the team. The director of hockey operations, a guy whose fingers are on everything. He's like the dictator of the New York Islanders. Guess what happens to what happened to Bill Belichick? He was the dictator of the New England Patriots. He lost his job and no one else wanted to touch him because you know what? At 70, 71, going to be 72 years old. They're like, no, we're not upsetting our apple cart for a guy who's 72 years old and is probably going to be here for 3 years. Lou Lamoriello was 82, and somehow we still give him unlimited power. Astonishing.
Yeah. You know, it's I will say the first coming out of this stretch is extremely important. Very critical time of the season for us. I think there's no other way to phrase it. We're a team that's on the outside looking in right now. A lot of teams have games in hand on us. We've got a tough portion of the schedule. Like everybody plays tough portions of the schedule down the stretch. You know, every game and every point means a whole hell of a lot more than what it did earlier on in the season. We've got a new coach. We need to start having results. That simple. I don't know how long, right? How long is a time period you give to them, but we need to start seeing results, right? It's as simple as that. The trade deadline, right? Some teams are already making some early moves on the deadline or before the deadline, my mistake. When that starts to happen, kind of sets the prices of where players are and what the value of players are. And one thing I've noticed is people are mentioning, oh, wow, Elias Lindholm, man, he went for a whole hell of a lot. I mean, like when you think about how much the Vancouver Canucks had to give up, and the people mentioning, wow, players are going for a lot more than I thought they would. Well, what you have to do is you have to look at the available players for trade. Teams, the amount of teams that want to win the Stanley Cup always remains the same. That never is affected. But the players that are available, how talented they are, or how average they are, depends on that year who's on expiring deals. This year, there's not a lot of really talented players that are up on the trade deadline, on the trade block. So you're going to see that those players go for just as much as they used to, except you're going to see more given out for lesser talent this year at the trade deadline.
It's supply and demand. It's basic economics, honestly. There's not a whole lot of guys on the market. So the guys who are pretty good and have value are going to get higher prices. It's just that plain and simple. Look at what Montreal got for Sean Monahan. I mean, for Sean Monahan, who was signed, made no bones about it. He was signed with Montreal so that they could flip him at the deadline. They got a nice return for him.
A first and a third, right?
I mean, that's pretty good for Sean Monahan. And here's the thing. I like Sean Monahan. I wanted him on this team. That's a guy I wanted to sign. That's another thing, right? Hey, don't listen to me, Lamarillo and Lamanites. The guys I make suggestions on, this team is too cheap or not interested in signing them. So you have to struggle with guys like Julian Gauthier or Pierre Engvall, or, just name the raft of failed third and fourth liners that perpetuate this roster.
We heard a lot of that. Oh, man, Monahan had that injury last year. And look at this. I mean, if you look at the years prior, look at that. 2020, 2021, 28 points in 50 games. Well, then when 2021, 2022, oh, gotcha, he only had 23 points in 65 games. Then he had 17 and 25 because of the injury. And guess what? This year, he picked up at a pretty decent performance and a pretty decent rate playing for a bad Montreal team.
He's had injuries.
Yep.
He's had injuries. But here's the thing. He's at an age where you roll a dice on a guy like that. Here's the thing. You know what you don't do for Sean Monahan? You don't give him a 7-year contract extension at $10 million per. You sign him for 1 year, 1.9. That's called being a smart general manager. Who would ever think I'd say that Montreal's GM is smarter than ours? But he obviously is. Lou is living in some delusional world where he thinks he's got to just overpay everyone to get them to come here. Then maybe it's a problem with your organization, or maybe guys around the league talk and say, you know what, that team they're just a bunch of, they're never going to win. They're never going to win with that group or that incestuous relationship they have at the top of the team management structure. That's possible too, right?
I won't say that's likely. It could be.
You don't think players talk?
I think players talk. I don't think it's likely.
Why did no free agents come here? Except guys who are desperate for jobs. 35, 36, 45-year-olds, 38-year-olds.
I think that's who our GM targets. I think our GM, think about this. Our GM did make the first offseason he was here. He made the big play after Panarin and got spurned right at the end. And what other big name free agents would you say that our general manager has tried to acquire try to acquire this in the offseason? I'd say none is right. None. That's my point. You don't really know what the issue is if you're not actually entering, the carnival to say, let me buy a ticket and have the chance to win Artemi Panarin or have the chance to win free agent A, B, or C. If you're just content saying, well, we make all of our offseason moves at the trade deadline. That's something that people like to say. People like to celebrate. Hey, what's the difference if we just trade for a player at the trade deadline and then sign him because he was going to be a free agent, and we just use that as a way to get him for the last stretch of the games and the offseason? Well, you're going to see what that does in the next few years when you're in a spot to where you don't have a lot of young players to mix in with the lineup. You don't have a lot of young talented players. Your prospect pool is the worst in the NHL. That's what you're going to see. So it is worth mentioning here that. But go ahead, Grump.
On what?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you sent me a private chat. My mistake. Yes, the Islanders, right? There could be some good with Patrick Wall stepping in. I am cautiously optimistic at this point. I think that he could be the right man for the job. Taking down a laissez-faire, relaxed country club mentality is going to be more than a one-man effort. It's going to require help from the guy upstairs. It's going to require help from Lou Lamoriello, and maybe that's possible. Maybe.
I don't think so. I don't think Lamoriello is going to do anything he doesn't want to do. Again, I'm sticking by Patty Wah's taking over. He's taken over. He's going to determine who's on. It has to be somebody strong to stand up to Lamoriello. Period. I think that Patty Watt is a strong personality who will, and maybe ownership has said to him, dude, the old man's retiring at the end of this year. We need somebody else to go. We need another new clean slate, a new direction. We promise you'll coach this year, then you'll be the GM role. That's what I'm hoping for. I know I keep opining for it because it's the only thing that can get us out of where we are right now. The only thing. And here's the thing. There are going to be some ugly, dark times for this franchise going forward. But at some point, you have to start the transition. And you have to have somebody young enough and astute enough who knows current players, not guys who are in their 40s or in their late 30s, younger players who can move this franchise forward. That's what I'm hoping for from Patty Waugh.
Okay. I will say you're limited to doing that 4 times a podcast. I don't need to hear that.
Anytime I want.
I don't need
anytime
to
I want, because I want people to know.
I don't need to hear that you want Patrick Waugh to be the GM more than 4 times a show. You could do it once every 30 minutes, Grumpy. All kidding aside, it's I don't disagree. That would be something I would be down for. Maybe he has more say so than what we think. Gauthier being waived, it's not like that's a huge thing, but this is a guy that certain sections of the fan base, the Lamanites, were clamoring over. Oh, he's so fantastic. Oh man, look at how great he was. I can't believe that idiot Lane Lambert wouldn't play him more. My God, if he's just letting a guy so great rot on the vine. I can't believe that moron who couldn't coach his way out of a pee-wee game is making the wrong decisions. You saw that all the time. I just wonder if we're going to get the same reaction to the fact that now Gauthier's been waived.
I have a question. Do the Lamanites ever tire of being wrong?
No, they just move on to the next thing.
Because they're wrong every single time.
They're right sometimes. Sometimes they're right.
When?
I think this, right? Like, I think we talk about
Noah Dobson, trade him.
Well, that's wrong.
We've already heard that this year. We heard it last year from another character. We heard it this year from the lead Lamanite, right?
Yeah.
And we said, no, he's the best defenseman on your team. Who's proven right? Who's proven right?
I think that they have had moments where they've been right. Right? They're not always wrong.
Can you think of one?
Here's the thing, right? We disagree. Us and the Lamanites disagree on what we think Simon Holmstrom can be.
Okay.
You're gonna let me finish that, Grumpy?
No, I'll touch on it.
Well, I'm not. I didn't even have a chance to answer your fucking question. So if you let me, what has been wrong on, I will answer you, and then you could respond however you'd like, please.
Okay.
What have they?
So far, who's right on Simon Holmstrom?
I'd say they're probably right.
Really, a third liner?
Here, Grumpy, your take originally, and Silva's mine is this guy's not good enough to play in the NHL.
I didn't say he wasn't good enough to play in the NHL.
Yes, we did.
I did not. Okay. I said he sucks, and guess what? He's proven that. You know what? He's a serviceable bottom 6 player.
We both thought this guy's a tweener. He probably is not a guy that belongs in the NHL. He doesn't belong in a roster every night. He deserves to be a guy on a rotation. I think he has earned himself a spot to be in the lineup every single night. And that's fine. I think he's earned himself a spot on that third line. That's fine, right? Chalk one up. They got half of one right. But, it's...
Is that your one? Is that it?
I can't think of anything else.
Okay, so there you go. So I'll just jump in. Like I said, they're always looking for needles, but here on the Islanders Never Say Die podcast, we own the fucking hay bale. Okay. So you could keep on trying to pick one thing out of another, but at the end of the day, we are right. I want to say 99.8% of the time. I'll put it to you that way. Okay. I'm going to give myself a little bit of leeway. The latest ridiculous, most incredibly stupid comment that's ever been uttered on this show was that somehow Simon Holmstrom is going to turn into William Karlsson. Why? Well, because William Karlsson did it. You know how stupid that is? That's maybe the stupidest thing that's ever been uttered on this show. You want to know why? Because William Karlsson and Simon Holmstrom are two different people in two different situations. There is no correlation between Carlson and Holmstrom except that they both come from Sweden. I could name 1,000 players, maybe not 1,000. I could name 100 players who've had the same trajectory as William Carlson and turned out to be nothing.
Well, the interesting thing, and like this is there was a little bit of a squabble online, and maybe some people saw that. It's to be honest with you, I don't have the time to squabble all day. I spent half a day and I said, what the fuck am I doing? I've got better things to do with my time than squabble with people like this. When we look at it, William Carlson never recorded more than 25 points in a full season until he was 25 years old. Right? So he was up in the NHL 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 points was the most points he'd ever put up, right, in a season. And then he turns 25 years old. He shoots like 27, 28%. The highest shooting
23.4%.
Thank you. 23.4%. The highest shooting percentage, I believe, in the NHL that season. Right? Like, I'll say this, to act as if most players in their career path have below average production, below average production, below average production, below average production, and then they spike up at 25 years old, and then all of a sudden have a 3 times increase on point production. I think that's a little disingenuous, right? I think that, younger players, right, when you're 18, 19 years old, you could see them have a big jump from, hey, they were 19, 20 years old, 21 years old, and they kind of stayed low, but 22, and you see a big spike. Well, it all has to do with when you're 19, 20, and 21 years old, you're still a boy, still a young man, not even really developed physically yet at that point. You're not an adult. When you're 25 years old, right? I'm not like I'm expecting a huge physical milestone between the ages of 24 to 25. You absolutely could see a big physical milestone between the ages of 20 and 21 or 21 and 22. That's not inconceivable. From 24 to 25, I'm just like, I think we're reaching at that point. But yeah, William Carlson. Most players are not William Carlson. They're not.
You want to know? Here's another similarity between Carlson and Holmstrom. They're both soft. They don't go in corners. Carlson's one Lady Bing candidate every year. Well, you know what that means? Soft. You never see him go into corners. Here's the thing. You never see Simon Holmstrom go into a corner and pick up a puck, ever. Okay? 78 points was his big year for Vegas. And here's the thing. Why was it the year that he broke out, the year he went in the expansion draft to Vegas? He was given a spot on the first line, and he had a tremendous shooting year. That was it. But after the 78, his highest point production was 56 points in a season. So it's like, okay, he had his career year the year that he went to Vegas. That's not what his consistent production is. It just isn't. I mean, like I said, when you just make, this is going to happen for him. You know what? He's going to have to show me. I'm from Missouri, right? I'm from the show me state, Missouri. You're going to have to show me you can do it. Right now, I don't see it. And this organization tried to force him to play on the first line. They wanted him on that first line, and he played himself out of that spot this year, not once, but twice. Not good enough. He's a third liner. He can serve as a third line player. No problem there.
I think
he's not even good enough to move up to the second line to take over for the failed Pierre Engvall experiment. He's not even good enough for that. The organization doesn't even think highly enough of him to put him on the second line. They leave him on the third line. Those are just facts, my friends. I only deal with facts.
I
look with my eyes.
I'll say this.
And I spout facts.
Okay, when you go on about that extra 5 or 6 sentences,
that's okay.
Talk about losing the point. I want to be able to add it.
Let me know when you're done pontificating, and then I'll talk. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Grumpy. That sounds good. You're talking here about Simon Holmstrom. You're talking about what can we see from him? What distinguishes a third line player from a second line or a first line player, right? Third line guys can show moments of brilliance. They absolutely can. They can show time periods to where it's like, wow, man, this guy's on a heater. Jean-Gabriel Pageau, he has a few time periods where, man, he looks really good in games. And he has a few moments, a few shifts where he looks fantastic. But you know what you see most times from third liners? You'll see occasionally a big spurt, a huge ember that impresses. And then you'll see a lot of the time the play on the ice is nondescript, right? That's important. To be a top six guy, you need to be somebody who brings it every single shift. You need to impress every single time you're out there on the ice. And it can't just be select days and select times, right? Your top six has to be your most consistent. Those have to be your most consistent, most talented players on the team, right? You can have talent. If you're not bringing it with consistency, you're not a top six guy. That like there's many different ways to distinguish your third line players and your fourth line players from the top six, right? I have not seen at this point in his career the consistency yet from Simon Holmstrom. Could he develop that? Sure, maybe. Would I say it's likely at this point? I don't know. We're 100 games in his career, and I still see the same things I saw earlier. He disappears at points in the game. He looks nondescript. Some games I'm like, oh shit, he's out there on the ice. Yeah, I forgot. That's the case. That's the case with a lot of third line players, Grump.
My comparison for Simon Holmstrom is Michael Grabner. He's always been my comparison for Simon Holmstrom. Michael Grabner's best year was his first year with the Islanders at age 23. He had 34 goals, 18 assists, 52 points, and guess what? 6 shorthanded goals. Does that sound familiar? Okay. The rest of his career, his highest point total is when he was with the Rangers at the age of 29, when he had 27 goals, 13 assists, 40 points. Do you see the correlation? A lot of those breakaway goals, right?
Michael Grabner, real quick. Michael Grabner had 30. I forgot Michael Grabner had 34 freaking goals for the Islanders.
Yes.
Think about this. People treat that as a mark of disrespect if we compare Simon Holmstrom to Michael Grabner. Michael Grabner had 34 fucking goals in a season. Go ahead, Grump.
My point is Michael Grabner was a third line player.
Yes.
That's what he is, a third line player. And there's no crime being a third line player. I'm not a third line player in the NHL. TJ's not a third line player in the NHL. Son X isn't even a fourth line player in the NHL. But that doesn't mean that here's the thing. Every team needs plumbers on the team. There's nothing wrong with being a plumber. I just think it's disingenuous when you're trying to say, well, this guy's going to turn out to be this, when his career really parallels Michael Grabner, like I said. And I didn't even look up the stats till right now. I'm glad they backed me up when I pulled them up. I'm really happy about that. Like I said, I use my eyes. I don't look at stats. I don't look at expected goals, above replacement, any of that silly shit, because it's useless. Tell me what they actually do on the ice.
Oh, wow. Michael Grabner, his first 100 games or his first 96 games. Wow. He had 63 points. Michael Grabner was guaranteed to be. Well, that's why you just can't look at the points that they put up there prior and say that that's going to be an indicator of what every single future looks like for the players. Michael Grabner started off a pretty hot year to his career, and you see exactly what he is. He kind of settled into where he's always been.
That's right. He was a third line guy who was really good on the penalty kill. Because of his speed, he had a lot of breakaways. And how many did he miss?
And he missed a lot. He served a very important role on the team. There's nothing wrong with that, is what I'll say. Let's talk about this, Grumpy, because we don't want to speak too much in generalities. Let's speak about ways to improve the team. I am interested in doing that, right? We talk about it consistently, but maybe for people who are new to the show, it is worth going down that list, because I can't remember. Maybe it's been a few months or a month.
It hasn't been a few months. Here's the thing.
Maybe it's been a month or so since we talked about ways to improve the team.
I just don't like being called out by somebody who never watches the show. That's a problematic for me. It really is.
Yeah. Well,
let's the show like it's the vagina monologues. That's a problem for me personally. Just like
okay. Well, let's go ahead and talk, Grumpy, like I just mentioned, about what ways to improve for people who are new to the show, Grumpy, right? Who are new. First time stumbling across today's show. Grumpy, how could we improve the Islanders? How could we improve what we see on the on ice product?
It's tough. It's tough. And it's tough in the regards of most guys on this team who have any value, who are not supposedly part of the core, have no trade clauses or modified no trade clauses. Guys who might have value. Guys who have 6 or 7 year deals, they're tough to move. Particularly, I'd move Pulak and Pellick. Either one, both, it doesn't matter. I think their value is really low because you've seen their play diminish over the last couple of years, and they're saddled with long-term contracts. Adam Pellick is kind of proven to be a little bit injury prone the last couple of years,
Yeah.
which I think is fair to say, right? I mean, he's had the concussion issues twice this year. I mean, that's gonna be tough moving forward.
I'm not sure. I mean, really what the value on a guy like Adam Pellick even is, to be quite frank. Just as you had mentioned, he's struggled as of recent. He's a guy who has had injury problems, one really severe, and I mean really severe concussion last year where he missed over a month and a half. He broke his hand or his arm or his wrist this year. Upper body injury earlier this year. And now he's out again right now with a concussion. Maybe he's back already, but I'm not sure. But yes, Grumpy, absolutely. I think that could be definitely problematic to his long-term ability to be a professional hockey player. But go ahead, Grump.
Okay, I'm going to go right up and down the roster. Matt Barzal, no shot of being
traded. Ways to improve the on-ice production. How do we improve the on-ice product, Grumpy? That's what we're talking about right now. So you got to
start over. You got to start over. you want the team to be better. You got to start over. This group is not good enough.
I think the ways. Go ahead, Grumpy.
Okay. Who are the guys you can trade off of this team who have any value at all?
Well, okay. I'm not going to let you take it there. I'll give you some of the answers.
You're asking me, but then you don't want me. You're asked if you don't really want me to tell you, I won't. You could just spout whatever
I asked you how to improve the current on-ice product, and you said trade everybody away and start over. So let's start on that. Well, that's not what I'm asking. So what I'm asking is, how do we improve the right now on-ice immediate product? And then we can jump in at that point into how to what we're going to need to do. That's fine. But for right now, what we're just covering, and this is going to be quick, right? How to improve the on-ice product. This year, we've had no defense. Our defense has been shambolic at best.
What are you going to do for it? You got $134,000 in the cap. What are you going to do? You're not getting anyone. Getting anyone. That's my point. You cannot. This is the Titanic. It's already spilling over into bulkhead 2, bulkhead 3. The ship's going down this year. There is no way to improve this team at all unless you make trades and cut salary to bring somebody else in. They're not going to do that, I would not think, unless they're just saying, you know what, screw it. We finally come to the realization we're just not good enough. And maybe they will. I hope they do. But who can you pick up for $134,000 till the end of the year? Who's going to make a difference on your team?
So again, yeah, I mean, like you're gonna have to move people off in order to make any sort of movement on the way back in, right?
Who has any value to anyone around the league?
I think you're giving up you're giving up draft picks, and you're like I'm really not sure. I'm really not sure what we can do even regarding player acquisitions at this point in the season, right? Regarding how do we improve the team? Like maybe people are throwing out there, let's get Vetrano. Vetrano could maybe help.
Why? What difference does he make?
So again, like
Frank Vetrano was a third line player in Florida. He's having a career year this year. Oh my gosh, in his contract year. He's having a career year for who? Anaheim. He wasn't even, I mean, come on. So what are we going to do? Re-sign him to a 7-8 year deal, trade for him at the deadline with who knows what type of magical assets the Jack and the Magic Bean's going to produce between now and the deadline in a month. So what are you going to trade for him? And then you're going to sign him to an 8-year extension for what? $7 million a year for a guy who's been a career third liner, who's having a good year in his walk year on a bad team. That'd be another mistake. Just doubling down on suck. That's all you're doing.
So getting more back to the centralized point and not bringing it all over the place. When we're talking about it regarding player acquisition,
No one. We have no money. There is no money. If you don't have money, you can't trade for someone who makes the team better. We have no money.
I understand.
It's a finance thing.
If
We
you
don't have money.
if you let me finish what I was going to say, that's what I'm going to say, Grumpy. But you kind of have to let
I've
me
already
finish
said it 3
every
times.
once
You
in a
keep
while.
on saying no. That's not it.
Because you bring it there and then start bringing it right back to roster construction and how we need to blow the team up. Guess what, Grumpy? We're going to get there. You just have
Listen
to
to me.
hang tight.
People don't need you to be Pepper Brooks on this show, just repeating what I say.
What I need you to do, Grumpy, is let's finish our topic, right? Because we're doing this, I guess, for the first time listeners. We're covering that, how to improve the on ice product, right? We can't unless
We've only done this
unless we were to have some sort of magic way to free up enough cap space to bring in some assets in order to change some of the blood on this team, or somebody gets a season-ending injury. There is going to be no additions at this year's trade deadline, perhaps. But hey, you never know with Lou. Lou has never disappointed. The only year he did not trade away assets at the trade deadline was, or the last time he did that was when we were 18 points out of the postseason. 16 points out of the postseason.
And it was 20 before the last weekend of the season.
Okay, whatever it was, we were many points out of the playoff spot. Most years he adds at the deadline. This is what he does.
What was the biggest crime of that year? At that time, you were 20 points out of playoff spot. You didn't move any of your guys on existing or who were last year of their contracts. You just didn't do it.
Okay, gotcha. So we're talking Grumpy. I'm gonna. If you let me finish my fucking points,
it goes on so long, I forget what you're saying halfway through.
Jesus. Speaking of that, my God. So I'll tell you this, right? We can't add players. Let's make it really easy. Oonga boonga. Can't add players because we don't have enough money or space to do that unless somebody gets injured, right? So we're not doing it that way. How could we increase the on-ice production? Well, if you can't add any players, the only thing you could do is hope and pray to God that a new system works out for you. That's it. That's the only thing that can make a different result on the ice if you can't bring in any new players. Wah, screaming and yelling may make a difference early on, and it may make a difference this year. Maybe we play more defensively responsibly. But guess what? I'm going to go out on a limb and say if we're playing more of a structured system and we're playing a lot more focused on defense, don't be shocked if you see our offense dry up again. We are the 8th worst team in goals per game. Do you think playing more structured on the defensive side of the puck, is that going to increase our offensive production or decrease offensive production, Grump?
I don't give a shit. The roster ain't good enough. I don't care what you do. This roster is not good enough. How many years do you have to watch the same roster to know it's not good enough? I don't care. Patrick Roy is not going to implement a brand new system with 39 games to go. Or if he does, there's going to be a whole hell of a lot of growing pains. The same group, he's been here for what, 4 games? They make the same mistakes, that they made under Lane Lambert. It's the players, not the coach. 3 coaches in 3 years should tell you that. It's the players. It's not the coach. 3 coaches in 3 years. What's the difference? The same guys on the team. The only guy who really seems to care is Bo Horvat. Everyone, to me, that was stark. That told you as much as you need to know about this group, that if they're winners or losers, was that game where everybody else went off the ice with 3 seconds to go. Nope, that's it. We're done. We're mailing it, except for Bo Horvat and the guys on the ice.
And Noah Dobson.
And was Dobson on the ice?
He was on the bench. He was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Everybody else went back to the locker room. What does it tell you about the players? That's a player indictment right there. I'm sorry.
Now, I think
players need to change for this team to be a success going forward. I'm not going to live another 30, 40, 50 years. I'm not going to. I'd love to see a shot at a Stanley Cup before I die. Right now, it doesn't look good.
That's true. Grumpy.
Not if we keep the old man.
I'm not sure you're going to see another cup before you die.
I don't think so.
At
least, here's the thing. At least I am old enough where I know I watched my team win Stanley Cups. I know what it's like to be a winner, to root for a team that's a champion and a winner. A lot of fans your age, maybe even a little bit older, have no idea, no clue. Because if you've been a fan of the Islanders for, I want to say you have to be at least I'm going to say
50s, at least 50s.
50. Here's the thing, you don't remember much
When you're 10.
about sports when you're 10. It's usually 11 or 12, right? So you're going to have to be at least like 51, 52 years old to even have an inkling of what it was like. For me, it was great because it was when I was like 17, 18, 19, 20, whatever it is. Those are the ages. So, I mean, I lived and breathed with the team. Absolutely, I did. You know what? So I know that that's the end game. It's not reaching an Eastern Conference final and getting beat by a team that's honestly just better than you. I mean, it's not a crime. I don't blame those fans, but to say that, you know, oh, well, why would we want to tear this down when we had success in 2 COVID years? That's not success. Success is winning a cup. As Ricky Bobby said, if you're not first, you're last. But I knew this team wasn't good enough at the time. I called it out on this show as it happened live. I called it out. I don't wait 3-4 years down the line. I'm seeing it every single night, every game. I can tell if a team's good enough or not. Sometimes you catch lightning in a bottle, absolutely. But usually over a 7-game series, the team that's the best team wins, usually.
Yeah. You know, I was just looking up, and I apologize. I was just looking up. So right now with the guys we have on IR, we do have deadline cap space. That's now what everybody's turning their attention to, is that we have right now 2 open roster spots and $5 million in deadline cap space.
Okay, but you'd realize once Pulak comes back, we lose some of that money, right?
Well, is Pulak on long-term injury, Grumpy?
Yeah, he's on long-term injury. So when he comes back, you don't have any money. You're probably going to have to cut some people. That's what you're probably going to have to do. You're going to have to drop some guys.
Let me ask you this. When is a time period that you can come back? Is it only the playoffs, or is it a certain time period?
Playoffs. It's playoffs.
Yeah, because right now, we're using some of that LTIR.
$6.15 million. That's his salary. So I mean, I know it's prorated over how many games are left.
So yeah, we've got just over or just under right around $5 million, and we've got 2 open roster spots at the moment. So a lot of people are trying to think, oh, what does Lou have up his sleeve? Maybe he does have something up his sleeve, Grumpy.
Okay, once you bring Pulak back, you have no money.
What if Pulak doesn't come back? What's the update we've had?
What does that matter? You think this team is better without Ryan Pulak?
Lower body injury where he couldn't skate off the ice? Well, no, here's the thing. What if I'm asking you this? If Pulak doesn't come back this year, or can't come back this year, and this is one of these things that Lou is keeping close to the vest. He's not letting anybody know that he's out for the season and he's on long-term injury reserve. Well, I could definitely see us trading for a defenseman at that point and giving up more draft capital to bring in our Ryan Pulak replacement so we don't have to put Sebastian Aho on the ice. But I don't know. And I think we've also got Bertuzzo on long-term injury too. I don't know.
I don't think he's on long-term injury.
I'm sorry. Yes, the Islanders sent him
he's
down.
On injured reserve.
They activated. I don't know. There's a lot of shit going on today. I think later on today they may have activated Ryan Pulak from long-term injury. Okay. There was a lot of moving and shaking that must have happened. Okay, this happened at 6 o'clock our time. Or my time. So this is right before the show. So he was activated off a long-term injury. And right now they do have $1.02 million that they should have by the deadline. They'll have available cap space.
Who makes a difference at that? That's almost what's vet minimum? 900,000? I mean, I don't know, 775, whatever it is. But is a Robert Bertuzzo off the street getting vet minimum, is that going to turn your season around? I don't think so.
If they wait to the deadline, yep, they're going to have a little over $1 million of available cap space. Yes, because Ryan Pulak was activated off of the LTIR.
All I'm saying is that if you bring someone in with that amount of money, you have to have quite a bit of money going back the other way to make it work financially. I know it's prorated, but who are you going to bring in who's on the block, who's going to make an impact on this team where it's needed with that little amount of cap space?
You always say that cap is not prorated, buddy. So it's not That's why teams usually hold, and if they're sellers, they usually retain half of the cap hit, but the cap is not prorated. That being said, we're going to have $1 million. Your open cap space can increase. That can increase, but the cap hit that the other player has is not prorated. So if you add a player, it's not like their cap hit is prorated. Your cap space can grow, but depending on how much time you leave it there, it can grow by the time the deadline happens. Yes.
Okay, I'll wait until Cap Friendly's updated because I'm showing different numbers on their site right now.
Okay, gotcha. But I'm just saying that was tweeted out here today at 6:00 Eastern Standard Time that the Islanders sent Gauthier and Holmstrom down, and they activated Pulak off of LTIR.
Well, Holmstrom going down is not a big deal because he is waiver exempt.
That's correct. That's why, yes.
But what doesn't it say something else? So they sent him to Bridgeport, Holmstrom?
No, it's just I'm sure he'll be called up. It's just one of these. It's one of those moves that they make.
Clerical. Okay.
Yes. So. And here's the thing: what they're trying to do is you can waive him, so you leave him down for a few days during the All-Star break when you're not playing any games, and hopefully it allows your little cap space, your potential cap space, to build up. Is what he's trying to do. He does that over little breaks, and I assume if there were a little break or items like that, he'd do that again to try to build it up. And he's technically one man short on the roster, is what he's doing right now.
What does it matter? It doesn't matter. You're not going to get a player of value with what you have to offer that's going to make a difference at the deadline. You just don't have enough assets that other teams want. I mean, a draft pick and who? It's got to be a young guy. No one's going to want to bring real money back on their team. They're going to get better offers than the Islanders have.
So just to show you there, this is Puckpedia. They also do a lot of the cap stuff there for hockey. Yep, they sent down Gauthier, Holmstrom down, activated Pulak off for LTIR. They exist. Look
at it. Here's your value. A guy who makes $1 million is what you can bring in at the deadline. That's it.
They could fit in a guy who makes a little over $500K as an annual cap hit today, or $1.2 million by the deadline.
Who making $1 million, who's their cap number is $1 million, is going to come onto this team and make a difference? That's my question to you. I think the answer is no one. No one. But that's what happens when you think you have to re-sign every single veteran that you bring in the door to ridiculous term, ridiculous money, year after year after year. It eventually it comes and bites you in the butt. That's what we're seeing this year. We can't even do anything in the offseason. We have $5 million in cap space going into next season. $5 million. How can you make improvements to a roster with $5 million?
Yeah.
It's tough, right? It's tough.
Yeah. And it's a lot of the same players, cast and crew that we've had for a while. But let's do this here. Let's get to our ad read, and then we're going to go ahead and start jumping into some of these comments, Grumpy Old Man. Today's podcast is brought to you by DraftKings. You've heard us talk about DraftKings here before. And I'll say this here. If you're looking for a super offer for Super Bowl 58, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered. New customers can bet on the big game and turn $5 into $200 instantly in bonus bets. And you've heard us talk about same game parlays. You've heard us talk about the great offers that DraftKings has. Same game parlays. You could say, I'm expecting Noah Dobson, the Islanders point leader, to go ahead and to register a point tonight. I'm expecting a shutout or less than one goal against from Sorokin. I'm expecting Matty B to have an assist. You can add a whole bunch of these same game parlays up, and it increases your payout. It's a cool way, if you enjoy gambling, to go ahead and stay engaged and enthralled there with any sort of NHL team, or even just specifically the Islanders. But download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code THPN. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 58 with promo code THPN. The crown is yours. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. And New York, Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available. If you have a gambling problem, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of the Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. You must be 21 years or older, but age varies by jurisdiction. It's void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Visit dkng.com/football for eligibility, deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gambling resources. Let's start getting to some of these comments here. Anthony Rizzi Grump.
With the trade compensation Calgary got for Lindholm, the Islanders definitely need to move Nelson. We could get a first, second, and 2 young players for him.
Yeah, and here's the thing too. Like as I mentioned on the last show, if you traded away Brock Nelson this year, people say, well, you could just trade him next year when he'll be on an expiring deal. You're still going to get a good amount. Well, what's going to earn you more? 1 year of Brock Nelson
in a down market, right? Not a whole lot of big name.
No, please wait. 1 year next year of Brock Nelson, or 2 years of Brock Nelson, where you're going to retain 50% of the cap hit, but you're going to say, gotcha, we're committing towards restructuring the team. You can give a team Brock Nelson at $3 million per year for this year and next year. Well, given a team Brock Nelson for 2 years at $3 million is going to earn you a whole hell of a lot more than giving Brock Nelson next year at $3 million for a playoff run. Give it for 2 years. You're going to see that your return is going to be a whole hell of a lot higher. But yes, right now there is not, Grumpy, there are not a lot of big name guys available right now through the trade deadline. That's why you're seeing a lot of these players go early, because it is slim pickings after the top tier. Absolutely slim pickings. What do you go? Adam Henrique?
So it's a seller's market. That's why you have to strike while the iron's hot.
Yep.
To me, Brock Nelson has not been as good this year as he has in previous years.
Definitely not in 5-on-5. I would agree with you there.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to re-sign him at 33? Just move on from a guy like that. Guess what? He's benefited the most. I've said it here 100 times. I was not a Brock Nelson fan, as everyone knows, but Barry Trotz got the absolute most out of him. You've seen when Barry Trotz wasn't here, his play has kind of gone downhill.
And maybe Patrick Waugh is able to reignite that, perhaps. Who knows?
I don't care. His value is never going to be higher than it is right now.
I agree with that. I absolutely agree. But that would require our general manager to say, we are going to restructure the way this team is built. I don't know if they're going to do that. And that's the unfortunate thing. That's what's needing to be done. You need to take a step back to take 2 steps forward. Anthony Rizzi says here, I would check with Colorado regarding Brock Nelson.
Anybody. It just doesn't have to be Colorado. You want to get first-round picks.
Yep.
You want first-round picks. If you can get a first this year, a first next year, whatever, anything. You need to restock the cupboards. That's what you need to do.
Frank says, TJ is late. Say it ain't so. Yeah, I'm running late. Anthony Rizzi said here, by the way, please don't have Andy on the podcast anymore. Last podcast was the worst since I've been following you guys. I'd rather have Phil's facts on every week.
I agree with that.
I think we got stuck in a rabbit hole talking about Simon Holmstrom, but in reality, the big issue is, what do we think about the Islanders as a whole? It was almost like he wanted to hammer that Simon Holmstrom thing. And I'm like, well, I mean, like, we're talking about one ancillary piece to a big problem. And like, we got fixated, and it probably is my fault as the host to say, why the fuck are we talking about Simon Holmstrom as in depth as we are? We're not going to talk about this team. That's what really needs to be talked about. The issues of the team as a whole, not one player evaluation and squabbling into a pissing match over it. So I'll take probably.
That wasn't the only thing.
Yeah.
It was a horrible show. It was a horrible show. I knew it.
Nick D says, TJ, come on. You guys have to be better at being on time. I know Grumpy needs to be better at being on time.
Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. When TJ was very close to having his child now, it's going to be me and X on here. And I guarantee you the shows will start on time for that period of time. And they probably are going to be a little bit shorter. But for certain, they'll start on time. Absolutely.
Has X even started watching a hockey game yet? Did he even watch the All-Star game?
He doesn't need to. I watch the games. He's going to be a true host. He's going to ask me questions that I give him, or that, Jesus Christ, the show's about to go downhill in a hurry. Oh, no. We'll see. Oh, no. Drew L. Let me tell you something. Your life is going to change dramatically. You don't think so. I'm telling you it is.
Grumpy, you have no idea what I think or don't think, my friend.
Okay. I'm just saying your
Drew,
life is going to change dramatically for the
that's
better.
correct. That's correct. Well, thank you. Drew L. Grumpy.
TJ, I have an idea for you. I sent you a Twitter thread, and I think it would be hilarious if you laughed at all the hate comments from the thread.
Oh, God.
Probably from the loser Lamanites, because they're all fucking losers. Everyone. Every single one is wrong.
Anthony Rizzi, Grumpy. Please continue. We've got 50 fucking comments.
Stop talking. I was just checking the date for the trade deadline, March 8th. That's just way too late. Why? That's game 62 for the Islanders. 20 games left. They need to make the deadline earlier. Does it matter? It doesn't matter.
There you go. Oh, Michael A. Grumpy.
Freaking TJ having a diarrhea.
Oh, that's it. Goon Grump.
Was Barzi's performance at the skills competition last night a microcosm of the Islanders the past 2 seasons? Shots hitting the goalpost, strong start, pooping your pants when it mattered most, etc. He's the best player on our team in the offensive forward group. It's not even close for second. Horvat would be second.
Yeah.
Goon says, all jokes aside, the skills competition wasn't bad viewing. It could have been tightened up and bad musical performance deleted, but I understand its length and bad songs, the almighty dollar. I did not watch it. I have no interest in watching the All-Star game or the festivities. None.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I did watch the one where Nikita Kucherov was not giving a fuck out there on the ice. It was like,
I'm sure we'll talk about that tomorrow.
Yeah. I'll mention something real quick. Fuck. It's not good when you have the commentators like, this is such a bad look for the All-Star game. And then they're grilling into the guy who's the best player right now in the NHL. I'm like, he don't want to fucking be there. You made him.
He just didn't want to be there.
You made him compete in items he didn't want to compete in, and he said, fuck you, I don't want to be here. Tough shit. I mean, like, good for him. He didn't want to fucking be there, and they forced him to be there. Frank K.
I assume Holmstrom will be back up since this was a cap move.
Yes.
Yeah. And they didn't have to put him on waivers. It was an easy decision to make.
Yep. He'll be back up. He'll be called back up when we resume play. Joseph C. Is
this the part where TJ blames Grump for his lateness that he already did? But here's the thing. I'm sitting here waiting. Hurry up. And I'm sitting here and TJ's having a conversation or whatever he's doing. I don't know, playing with his cats, whatever. And I'm like, let's go.
Yeah, no, I was being facetious when I blamed you. I was the reason for our tardiness today, Grumpy.
It's a
James F. Grump.
I was impressed at how well Barzal performed in the skills competition. Almost pulled it out.
Yeah.
He's tremendously talented.
Yep, absolutely. Got a comment here from Joseph C.
Time to get rid of the All-Star game in all sports. The only interesting part of the All-Star festivities is the NBA slam dunk contest, and I'm not even that big of an NBA fan. Well, Joseph, I don't know how old you are, but I remember the slam dunk competitions used to be really freaking good back in the day. They had the best players in those competitions. I don't think that's the case anymore. The only All-Star game to me that's worth anything is Major League Baseball. That's it.
Yeah,
it's the one where the game is actually the same as it is during the regular season.
I don't care at all about the NBA All-Star game. I don't care at all about the NFL Pro Bowl. The games suck. They do. The skills competitions are the things that sometimes bring me some joy because it's like I'm seeing them do things that they never do. So that's fun, to see as a professional do that stuff where it's like, oh man, it's just beautiful to watch. So I do enjoy the skills portion, but not. Good evening, says Matthew S. there. Grumpy Rick Rock.
We definitely have an elite talent in Barzal. He represented the island proudly, like a captain. Absolutely.
Yeah, I tell you, he absolutely has the ability. No doubt in my mind. If he was on another team or had a competent left wing, he'd be a guy that's putting up 100+ points every single year.
Yep.
Could you imagine if he had a bona fide top 6 talent? Well, I won't say Edmonton's cherry picking because they're the best forward, the best offensive team in the league.
A good team. I'll just say a good team then.
Sure. I was about to say, could you imagine if they didn't have an anchor hanging on the side like Anders Lee? I mean, shit, you could throw Leo Komarov. It's just an anchor to that line. I mean, Bo Horvat, Matt Barzal, and a really talented winger. You would just see Matt Barzal's production skyrocket.
Absolutely.
Boom, Grump.
Concerning my earlier fascinating observation, I boldly declare enjoying the NHL skills competition more than the home run derby.
I like the home run derby too. Because it's like there's no other sports on at that time period in the summertime. It's just, okay, it's the home run derby. Great.
Honestly, I've stopped watching that too. It used to be better than it is now.
Oh, everything used to be better. I couldn't tell you why, but it did. Anthony Rizzi.
It's a shame that we're wasting Barzell's talent. True.
It's funny when I watched that and I was like, man, he's the fastest skater. He's the most skilled. I'm like, shit. I'm like, he's
Not like you didn't hear that. It's not like you never heard it on this show before.
what players on his line keep up with his speed and can help really penetrate a team in transition, right?
Nobody.
Maybe Bo Horvat, but he's slightly trailing behind. But like Anders Lee absolutely can't. And it's just like, oh man, could you imagine if we had a speedy, creative player on the first line with him, how many points that line would put up?
That's what I've been pining for
Milo
years. Surprisingly enjoyable All-Star weekend. I like the draft format.
Nick C, grumpy old man.
How's it going, fellas? The All-Star game's a joke. Kind of cool. They're going to do the 4 nations face-off. That could really be entertaining.
Yeah, I think so too. That could be entertaining here. Brett W says here, TJ, you're late again. Grumpy, dock his pay.
Okay.
Well, from 0 to 0. Sounds good. Joseph C says here, Grumpy must be excited, by the way. The Rock versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40. I think I'm going to buy tickets because it's in Philly this year. The Rock is still wrestling, huh?
Well, he's not really wrestling. It's probably a one-off, and I think he's now part with Vince McMahon's issues, which are problematic for him. He's done. We'll talk about that absolutely tomorrow. And now Rock is part of the board. Maybe that's what expedited the process of getting him against Roman Reigns, because he's no spring chicken now either. I think he's like 50, something like that, The Rock. So, it's not like he's got a whole lot of great matches left. I wonder what the result will be. I'll watch it. I'll definitely watch it.
I have a feeling The Rock may win.
Well, but no, maybe not. Remember, The Rock's not going to be a full-time wrestler. So who do they want to get the rub? I mean, they probably want Roman Reigns to stay champion. They keep on counting how many days he's been champion. Only so many guys have had reigns as long as this. Title reigns, not Roman Reigns. So maybe he beats The Rock, right? They're cousins. So I don't think The Rock needs a victory. Certainly he does not need a victory, and I don't think Roman Reigns does either, but it'll definitely be the main event on night 2 of WrestleMania for certain.
Frank says here, hi, TJ and the Grumpy Old Man, and X and everybody. What's up, Frank? How are you? Barzal shining today in Toronto. He absolutely did. He did. James has said here, TJ, what's on your shirt? Did you get it out on parole?
What's with the shirt?
Is there something that you're not telling us? No, I just wore a collared t-shirt today.
It's not a collared t-shirt.
It's a collared t-shirt. I like the shirt, Grumpy, is what
Brett polo shirt. Thank you.
Grumpy, how old is that shirt, by the way?
Old. 25 years old. Old shirt.
Nick C, Grumpy.
Gauthier passed through waivers. I'm shocked. Kind of a weird move, in my opinion. Well, they knew no one was going to pick him up. Are they going to bring someone else up? Is someone coming off of IR? Yes, that's what happened with Pulak. Or did Wah not like his ethic? Well, I just thought they figured, okay, who can we pop on waivers to get Pulak back up onto the roster? It's like, okay, Gauthier. No one's going to pick him up. And they weren't wrong.
Yep, because remember, I don't think, I know Aho is definitely not waiver exempt, and I don't think Bolduc is waiver exempt this year either. I think he's on a one-way deal, but I'll have to look that up. TJ is definitely on house arrest.
Maybe they should have put Engvall on waivers. I mean, no one's going to pick him up at that contract, and that's more money for you.
Yeah.
Milo Brownie, I mean, come on. He's been a bust, right? Milo Brownie says the best players in the world and still sucks getting picked last. Hope they keep the format going forward.
Yeah.
The Islanders, you don't get respect. Sorry. No respect at all.
Well, think about that. He's picked last, and think about how damn good he looked out there too. But think about what the perception of him is. It's not because of his talent isn't there. It's simply because we don't do a good job showcasing that talent that he has. I think it's as simple as that. You see when he's out there, man, he looks like one of the best. Wow, he's compete with the NHL's best, and he looks like he may be a top 10 player in the league. How the hell is this possible?
I think hockey is probably of the 4 major sports, it's the sport where you have to have the best team together. the team around you. It's so fast moving. You got the lines changing on and off, so many different things happening at one time. I think, basketball's pretty much mostly one-on-one. Baseball is individual. Football, okay, but you got defense and offense. You got to be able to do everything when you're on the ice playing hockey. At least most guys do. So I think I think it's even more important to have teammates around you, which showcase your talent. I think it's more important in hockey than anywhere else. To me, it's the ultimate team sport. That's what I was looking for, except for maybe soccer. Soccer is another one where you have to play together as a unit, 11-man unit, the whole game.
Yeah. Joseph C. Grumpy.
Got tickets to the Islanders Rangers outdoor game at MetLife as well. Crappy seats, but should be fun. The outdoor jerseys are awful, though. True. Agreed. I don't know about, I would never go to an outdoor game. I just don't think you see it well.
It's literally just to say you went there.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's it. Oh, I was there at the game. Grump.
If Garth Snow didn't commit the Tavares flub, would he not be looked upon as such a GM dud?
I don't think he's actually that much of a dud looking back at it.
No, he was. What was the problem with Garth Snow? He worked under Charles Wang, so they were limited financially with what they can do. He made an absolute blunder by not moving Tavares, regardless if he said he wanted to stay. That was a bad mistake by him. That was the worst one. He tried to trade for Thomas Vanek. He tried things that he could fit under the salary structure that he was given. So I think he gets a bad rap that way.
Remember, he told us in that very, very revealing interview that ownership made him keep him, even though he told him it's like it could be a car driving off the highway. You better be careful. If you want me to do that, I will. But so I do always think that's fine.
I just here's my little opinion on that. It's real easy to say management wanted you to do that when management is dead.
That is
so
correct.
They cannot respond to that. And you see that a lot where people all of a sudden they talk shit about somebody. Well, this happened, but the guy's dead. I mean, it's like, okay, you didn't really mention anything when he was alive. So it was just kind of confusing for me.
Who the hell?
Was he a great GM? No, I don't think he was, but there were extenuating circumstances.
It's like Marcus Allen it's like Marcus Allen when he talks so much shit about, or he talks so unfavorably of, who was it?
Al Davis.
Al Davis after he died. After he died, I'm like, if you don't have the nuts to say it, what now? It could be different for Garth Snow because he was still getting paid by the team, so maybe that's why he was staying quiet. But it was like there absolutely are cases where players and ex people will talk very poorly of somebody after they're dead and can't defend themselves, and you're just like, I don't know. That's a little. It speaks to your character. I think you don't speak ill of the dead.
It's easy. It's easy for you to rewrite history when everyone else is dead.
But yeah, I'll say this about Garth Snow. No money to work with, and he did at the tail end really hit on a lot of draft picks. At the tail end, at the front half, woeful. But I mean, you look at it, right? Pellick was a late pick. Devon Tays was a late selection. Sorokin was a late selection. You start looking, Anders Lee was Brocknell. Look at all of those picks. Was like they were starting to hit on quite a few of those picks in the tail end.
Was a first round pick.
Well, no, I just mean like at the tail end of his tenure, at the tail end of his time with the Islanders as GM. Tenure. At the tail end of his tenure, he was starting to hit on a lot of those picks, some first round, some late round picks, but he was just starting to hit on more picks. And in the front half of his career as a general manager, he absolutely was not. So,
yeah, maybe he got better. Maybe it took him a while from taking off the goalie pads to actually turning into a GM. That's why you want somebody who's had a little bit of experience. I'm just saying.
You got rid of a guy as he was riding a hot hand. Anyway, Frank.
Why isn't stupid? Wallstrom will be playing. Grumpy old man, he's in Bridgeport. Oliver Wallstrom's not in Bridgeport, is he?
No. Talking about Holmstrom, I'm sure. But that's what he's talking about. Frank.
Yeah, but I think that's just a clerical thing to clear space to bring Pulak back, which should potentially make the team better. You're going to see Pelican, Pulak, Romanoff, and Dobson. They're going to go back to that, which I think hurts Dobson.
All righty. Drew says here, Pierre Engvall is probably on house arrest for his charges of robbery.
Yeah, every month, whenever he gets his paycheck or checks his bank statement, or however often, I don't know how often they get paid. But yeah, Every time he looks at it, like I said, I never seen a guy smile so much signing a $3 million a year deal, in this day and age for 7 years. He was probably thinking, man, I'll be lucky to get $3 million for 2 years or 3. And they're like, holy shit, we won the lottery here with the Islanders.
Do you like this comment, Grumpy?
What'd you say?
Do you like this comment, Grumpy?
Fletcher says, all right, TJ and Grump, enough effing around. What does PDO mean? PDO. What did I say that meant? I forget.
Your private chat, you did not forget.
I did forget. You'll have to tell me later. Sorry, Flex Screw, I forgot. I know I came up with it, and it was pretty pithy, but I don't remember what it is now. He's going to send it to me in private chat. Here it is.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember now. It's just as funny now as it was. I forget. What was the context again?
It was something about the PDO of this player is 14.7 something. That's greater than, I don't know. It was some stupid analytic number that they like to use. It's like, I don't know, preferred defensive opportunity. I don't fucking know. I don't know what it stands for. But Grumpy's like, what the fuck does that stand for? And Grumpy I remember when he was like, Grumpy always types with one finger each. Like,
I do. That's all I need.
Yes.
I'm not writing War and Peace over here. I see something, I add some words to it. Hey, it comes out. That's actually pretty funny.
Anthony Rizzi.
Maybe Watt has some pull and will get Engvall kicked to the curb. I don't want to see him in the lineup ever. Please deal him somehow. Okay. Again, I feel like I have to stick up for Pierre Engvall. He's not a second line guy. He's never been a second line guy. Maybe we can draw some type of comparison on how somebody turned it around at the age 28-year-old season and turned out to be a star. Most guys don't. I'm going to stick with he won't. He's a third liner. He's always been a third liner, and he got paid off for an 18-game stretch at the end of the season. Another moronic move by your elderly general manager.
The elderly GM. Grumpy.
That's the nicest way I can put it, right? Island Puck Live says, hey, all. Same thing with Gauthier for some people is fashing. Engvall, etc. I like 26. And I like some 10 because they're young, even if they're bottom sixers. And for me, I think 26 can be even more. Who's talking about
Wallstrom? Wallstrom.
That's right. Well, here's the thing. Wallstrom's played so little, I forgot what his damn number was.
I'm fucking checking to make sure I'm not messing up his numbers. Yeah, he's 26. I was like, whew. I was about to say, you're right. He's been a healthy scratch for as long as he has this year. It's easy to forget who the hell his number, because I'm like, Fashing, I'm like, he's 20, I believe. I'm like, let me just double check. I'm not mistaking that. Maybe that's, I don't know.
Like I said, for me, if I'm looking at deal players, I'm not dealing Wallstrom. I'm not dealing Holmstrom. I'm not dealing him.
Yeah.
Because why? Because they're young. They still have some upside to them. It's the older guys, and they're the toughest ones to move because they all have no trade clauses, no move clauses, modified no trade clauses. They all have that. That's the way to get people to stay on the island, I guess.
But you're right. I am excited to see what Simon Holmstrom can do. Maybe he could become our William Karlsson. Maybe. Here's the thing. You're not going to see me like Simon Holmstrom absolutely has proven he deserves to be in the lineup every single night tonight, every single night in this season. And that being said, that's a huge accomplishment for him. And I'm happy about that. You don't need
to kiss Holmstrom ass. You don't need to do that.
I'm not kissing Holmstrom's ass. What I will say is this. I don't want to celebrate bottom six players. I don't, and I won't do that. Maybe he could be something more. Maybe he could be a good role player, but
Michael Grabner. He's Michael Grabner. That's what he is. Michael Grabner.
Joseph mentions this later on. He's like, another guy who they remind me of is Carl Hagelin. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, look at this. Another Swede, right? I remember the Nordic players a long time before they, 38 points, 24 points, 33 points, 35, 39,
solid third line.
Oh, look, this is another one of these players who didn't take a big astronomical jump at the age of 25 years old. Yeah.
Like I said,
most players don't.
So we're going to take the one guy that did and say that's his comp. Yeah, no, sorry.
Hey, we're just bringing up
what? Off of like 2 or 3 highlight clips, because I can show you how many times he's missed wide open nets. He can't receive a pass. He makes a shitty pass. I mean, come on.
And the funny thing is, I was like, oh yeah, there's Hagelin is a Swedish player. I'm like, I wonder how many Swedish players we could find that just.
It doesn't matter where he's from.
Well, I'm just saying, because that was used in the example, players of Nordic descent.
Idiot.
And I'm like, we're not talking about Norwegian players.
Well, I guess we could mean guys from Finland or Denmark or any of those. Or
I don't think there's a lot of Denmark players from Denmark in the NHL. How about Nino Niederreiter? He's been fantastic his entire career.
Frans Nielsen's from Denmark. But I'll throw Michael Grabner. He's from Switzerland. That's one of those Nordic areas,
Austria,
right?
Austria. He's from Austria.
What did I say, Dent? What did I say?
You said Switzerland.
Okay. What's the difference?
Yeah, the only reason, because I looked it up earlier, I'm like, that's right, he's from Austria. Matthew S. says here, all hail Son X.
Oh, there you go, Matthew. He knows what to do.
Michael Boucher says here, Lou, I hope he'll be out very soon.
So is everybody. Anthony Rizzo says, I'm with Grump. Let's give Wah the GM spot, fresh eyes, new direction. Absolutely. The team needs it. The team needs a fresh start. It just does.
Yep. Here you go. Matthew S. Grumpy.
Problem is Mayfield and Engvall are here and they're immovable. That's what happens when you give guys set. What do we hear from the idiotic, stupid, ridiculously moronic Lamanites? And that's all of them, every single one. We say, well, but gosh, look at how low the AAV is. It doesn't matter what the AAV is. You're stuck with these guys till they're mid to late 30s. No one wants contracts like that. No one. It's just so stupid. And here's the thing. You didn't need to give him that term. You absolutely didn't. You give him a 3-year deal. Mayfield, who I love, as everyone knows, 3-year deal. You don't want it? Go somewhere else. Pierre Engvall. His wife said, oh, Pierre, I thought that maybe, oh, he's from Sweden. He's from Sweden too. Yeah, let's look at his numbers. Let's compare his failed thing. Let's compare him with Simon Holmstrom. That's more what you're looking at right there. Right? That's the type of guy you're really looking at.
He must have had a big explosion when he turned 25.
I'm serious. I never seen a guy smile so much and how excited he was to stay on the island. After he signed that deal, I was like, holy shit. He never thought he was getting that money. That's the first thing I thought and the last thing I'll ever think about him.
He just had an ear-to-ear smile, didn't he?
And he's a serviceable third liner. That's what he is. He's Simon Holmstrom, just a couple of years older. Look here, same thing. Same exact thing. It's same. They're all the same.
Well, it's just to speak that most players, right? You're not going to see a huge jump in point production and offensive production from like 24 to 25.
You either have it early on or you don't.
I was about to say,
skill shows out at a young age. It just does.
Yep, you could see it. You could see it. Simple as that. Frank K says here, Grumpy Man is right. Lou was brought here to assemble a championship team and to win a Stanley Cup. Epic fail up to this point. No consolation bullshit.
What was the thing that he and Trot said after the second loss to Tampa?
This is Stanley Cup or bust.
I guess you busted out. Snake eyes, right?
Just by your own admission and by your own
you admitted that you're a failure. He admitted that he's a failure. He admitted it.
Yeah. Gungoon says, Carl Weathers, rest in peace.
Hollow Creed, 76 years old.
Frank Grumpy.
And Watt is like 10 million years younger. So he'll know players that are suitable for today's game. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the fact that the coach, GM, whatever he was he knows the junior players as well.
John Smith said here, I'm dedicating this podcast to Chubbs. There it is. Drew L. says
he only had the one hand because that alligator got him and Happy Gilmore.
Yes. Drew says here, I can tell Grumpy got a haircut because his hairline moved about 6 foot backwards. Oh, Grump.
Too bad I'll be dead by the time that Drew it goes bald. Well, maybe he'll go bald while I'm still alive. Probably will.
Robert Marshall Grumpy says, Barry was the reason for our success despite senile Lou. Yeah, I'll say Barry, right? Barry in that system. And everybody committing. 100% commitment was the reason for success. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the thing. Patrick Waugh could have a good system. Our team is not talented enough to win unless we have 100% commitment. So the ways that this team, right, how can we virtually improve for the right now? A new system structured on defense, and we're going to be white knuckling it during games like, oh shit, we're up 1-0, we're up 2-1, we're really close in every single game. We're not expecting huge offensive outputs. Don't expect that. That's not the way Patrick Waugh wants to probably play the game here for the Islanders, and it's not what's been successful for us. The only way we can win is playing defensive structured system and scoring 1 or 2 goals a game. But we need to have full commitment from the team, and we have to have a much better coach than Lane Lambert.
Yeah, I think Barry. He was, and here's the thing: we were hard on Barry at the end. Absolutely we were.
Probably wrongfully so.
Well,
I'll say I probably feel wrongfully so because there's nothing he could have done differently. That is why I feel like I did wrong by him, is because now I can look at what happened to Lane and say the players in this room are the issue, not the coaches.
And that's why we said everything from here on out is on the GM.
Yep.
Here's the thing. The players tuned him out at the end. And it had nothing to do with Barry after you see hindsight being 2020, because they tuned out Lane. And eventually they might have already tuned out Wah the way they played the first couple of games, right?
Oh, I don't.
The same. I'm not saying they have. It's too early, of course. But I'm just saying at some point you got to look at the players. He got the most out of that team that you could. It just wasn't talented enough. Sorry. You had a team that was tremendous in Tampa Bay, and you were never going to beat Tampa Bay.
Thomas Bach, Grumpy.
Oh, can I say one thing before this, Thomas Bach? Can I do something that the Lamanites do?
What is that?
Even though I don't put much stock in it, I want something they can understand. The Islanders are 12th in the conference in points per game.
Wow, that's pretty good.
So I don't think, like I said, myself, it doesn't mean anything. I'd much rather be the team that has the points in the bank as opposed to having to win games to vault you over the top. But the Islanders right now are 12th in points per game. So that's not a good thing. Maybe the Lamanites think that is a good thing. I don't know, but I would think it's not good.
It's not. It's not. Thomas Bach, Grump.
Gents, I've been watching this team since 75. In all that time, I've never lost interest ever. Even in the dark days, I still had interest. Under this GM, I'm beginning to not care. Lou really has to be replaced at the end of the year. Absolutely. And that's honestly, I'm not saying I don't care, but you're not going to win with Lou Lamoriello as your GM. You're just not. The game has passed him by. Sorry. When you have to overpay in every trade and then pay guys ridiculous term, ridiculous money, you've just kind of lost your mind. And that's I'm not saying he's senile, but you understand what I'm saying. He doesn't know, he's never won anything in the salary cap era, period. When he was with the Devils, man, he screwed these players on their contracts on the regular basis all the time. I mean, he can't do that now. And now he's limited with how much money he can spend or what he can even do. There's competition for players. That's a problem for him. I mean, but it's frustrating. And Thomas knows. He's been a fan forever. He knows. He's not somebody, who was born in whatever year and never saw the glory years. He's seen the glory years. He knows. And that's the thing that's frustrating to me. We all want the Islanders to be Stanley Cup champions. If you just see how much longer do you want to tread water and be a borderline playoff team? That's just like, you're not going anywhere. If you think that's success, you're a failure.
It's that mentality is just a shitty
mind-boggling. Honestly, it's like, dude, that's loser mentality. Right there.
I've never heard anybody saying that, and to win the Super Bowl, man, we're just happy to punch our tickets to get into the playoffs. And now that we're in the playoffs, you don't fucking hear that. Think about that. That's going to piss me off. You don't hear that in any other fucking sorry sack of shit sport. Not in any sport. You don't hear that in the NFL. You don't hear that in the MLB. All we had to do was make the playoffs, and we've got a chance to win the World Series. All we had to do to win an NBA Finals is just punch our ticket. Anything can happen, guys. Please, for the love of all that's holy, nobody ever says that shit in any other sport except the teams that are always freaking on the treadmill of mediocrity, thinking that, hey, this is how we can continue to think that we're a legitimate contender. Nobody says that. That's a top-tier team. Nobody says that. Not a single one. In any fucking sport, all we had to do was just to win the Olympics, all I had to do was just punch the ticket and get out there so I can get to the Olympic trials. Fuck no. That's what nobody says. Okay,
it's like with Usain, you're running the 100-yard dash or the 200-yard dash or whatever.
Usain Bolt, finals, anything can happen.
Whatever Usain Bolt ran in, and somehow you qualify for the finals with the 10th fastest time, and you're running against Usain Bolt, who's beating your time by like 3 seconds. I mean, yeah, okay, technically, if everyone else pulls a hammy down the straightaway, you could win. But what's the probability of beating Usain Bolt? I'm going to say 0. Right?
It's all sports. That's when people say that it's
the loser mentality. It's like you go. Let's say you go. I know Minnesota Vikings did make the playoffs this year. Every year, hey, we can make some damage. We get in there. No, you're not winning because your team's not good enough. You find ways to lose every year.
Yep,
you're not good enough. You have Kirk Cousins as your quarterback. Your defense isn't good enough. Your coaching staff sucks. You're just not good enough. I mean, it just doesn't happen. You maybe can win a round or two, but eventually you run into a team that's just better than you, get beat.
Yeah, I just fans who listen to the show or people who have had the mentality of anything can happen. This year, when we get to the NHL playoffs, I want you to look at the NBA playoffs and see if you have teams like, oh, hey, Portland saying anything can happen because they made the playoffs.
Okay. Here, NBA's perfect example. They have the two play-in games, right? So you can be 10th and still play. How many teams that are 9th and 10th do you think, well, gosh, all we got to do is get in the playoffs? Okay, stop. Full freaking stop. The top teams most always go to the finals. Super Bowl this year. You got the 49ers, best team in the NFC, and I think they were the best team all year, right? You got the Chiefs. Okay, were the Chiefs the best team all year? No, but you want to know something? They got the best quarterback in the league right now, and that's what you're seeing. And I think, and now here's a crazy thing: they've been there, done that. That makes them better than some of the other teams they had to play. Some teams are just losers. Some teams are winners.
Hey, the Dallas Mavericks, they're going to squeak in at the 7 spot in the Western Conference. Anything can happen. They can win the NBA Finals. Anything can happen.
You know what usually happens?
You never hear that in any other fucking sport. And when anybody tells you that because we're rooting for orange and blue, just think to yourself, have I heard this in any other sport? That all I have to do is punch my ticket. And 7-game series, right? Because the NBA, there's 7-game series in the NBA. Do you hear the NBA teams talking about all we had to do was just punch our ticket and get to the playoffs this year, and we can win? We can win the NBA Finals. We can win the Stanley Cup.
Oh. It's probably just not going to happen.
Goon grump. But yeah, I'll say this about Tom Spock. I'd mentioned this last time on the show. It's rooting for this team right now is the toughest it's ever been. This is tougher for me than when we were fucking losers.
You always had the draft, and maybe the future would be better. Now it's like, man, we're stuck. It's like
the expectation I had was our team is bad, but if certain things go well, we can make improvements. I had low expectations consistently. You get to a spot where you see a little bit of 2 back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals. You've got our general manager coming out there saying Stanley Cup or bust. And since that time period, we have 2 playoff wins in 2 years. And right now we're not in a playoff spot. We're on a path to where we say we're good enough, but what we've seen as of recent proves the opposite. So the path we're on and what the GM is saying are complete difference. It's tough to root for that right now. It just is. This is the toughest to root for the Islanders has ever been in my lifetime. And maybe other fans feel the same way too. And if you do, you're not alone. Goon grump.
Even the last few years for me, okay, we can still transition away from this group if we're smart at the deadline and acquire some assets so we can just transition to the next phase. It's tougher and tougher every day. And if they keep Brock Nelson or a JG Pajot or Kyle Palmieri, all these guys, again, have no trade clauses or full no trade clauses. They're tough to move, but maybe they want to move. I mean, you can talk guys into things all the time, but I mean, the longer you hold on to these guys, the less value that they have.
Yes.
And the tougher it is to get tangible assets for them. That's all.
Goon grump.
Is it possible Lou brought in Wah because he's planning on stepping down sooner rather than later? I hope so. Wah would be the new fumigator. Absolutely.
Frank K says here,
Probably Benoit Desiers becomes coach. If Wah becomes GM, he's defensive minded. Yeah. The quickest way to become good is to be solid structurally, defensively.
Yep. You can take a team that doesn't have a lot of talent and you will always be in games.
That's what Barry did.
Yeah.
That's what Barry did.
Went from one of the worst teams in the NHL, couldn't stop a damn puck to save our life, couldn't prevent. We brought in a Hall of Fame caliber coach and immediate results. There's a reason for that. David D. Grumpy.
Stop going to every game and it'll wake Malkin from wherever he's at as the only way that'll change. Absolutely. Things have to get bad for him to care, I think. Care enough to get rid of the old man, just say, oh my gosh, in Lou trust. I hate those phrases. When you hear that shit, it's when the team's failing. That's when you hear it. When the team starts in Lou trust. It's because the team's not going well. It's like, please stop doubling down on it. Just move on.
Frank.
Me too, Robert. Lou must go. Agreed. He's way older than my dad, and I'm freaking 53. So what does that tell you? LOL.
Tony G's Grumpy.
TJ's on the front lines in the war with Phil and Andy. Fuck them both. Next. Don't come at TJ. I'm going to tell you what, bitches. Don't come at TJ.
Well, it's easy. It's easy. If I dedicate enough time, I can get into a pissing match. But I'm like, what's the point? What's the point for it? Doesn't make any sense. Frank Grumpy.
I will always believe Varley got his contract as a thank you because he's the reason we got Sorokin. That's why he signed the first time. So he's gotten 2 contracts over that. He got a 5-year deal the first time to bring him in. That was Lou's big offseason signing. The first was bringing in Varlamov and letting Leonard go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you already got paid for that to be a backup.
Tony G said, I think TJ was close to a meltdown dealing with these Lamanites on X. Well, here's the thing. I was like, do I want to take the time and just produce a whole bunch of examples to disprove this ridiculous notion that you only see a 50-point production increase from 24 years old to 25 years old? And that is not uncommon. That is actually the norm, is what I was told on social media.
It's not the norm.
And it's not. And I'm like, it's the quintessential definition of gaslighting. When I've got a clip that's produced and it splices half a sentence I say to try to pigeonhole my thought on a player, it's very Machiavellian-esque. I'll tell you that. It's cunning. It's meant to be deceitful. And I'm like, ooh, I don't like that. I've got no use for it.
If you want to run a clip, run the whole clip. Don't use creative editing to try to prove your point. I have a clip where a certain guy, maybe he doesn't remember how old he is, but here's the thing: he wasn't fucking alive when they won Stanley Cups. Fuck no, he wasn't.
Well, it's just more than that. I'm just
here's the thing: I got no fucking tolerance. When you're lying to try to prove a point, you have to lie about your age. You've lost the point.
Well, that's my point. I'm like, I'm not a fan of somebody trying to take what I say in half a sentence and splice it. And I didn't hear from this person. I didn't get a text. I didn't hear nothing. I was like, okay, that's fine. So, I just, when you watch them all, they all live online and I'm like, my God, I don't know how they have enough time to do that. Just like maybe they say the same thing. I don't know how Grumpy and TJ have enough time to talk about the Islanders as much as they do too. Yeah. I'd rather talk Islanders with Grumpy than spend an hour or 2 hours responding back to people that I'll never know.
We don't do this show for anything but to spend time together.
That's
because
correct.
We don't live in the same area. So
That's
for
correct.
us, we're not here to make money. We're not here to, we're fan group. We're fan group. Just like we're fanboys, just like everybody else. I'm a little bit smarter than TJ, of course. But other than that, I mean, we do this because we just love the Islanders and we just like talking about it. It's so we can talk to one another. That's what this whole thing was started on. It's what the whole thing's been about since the get-go. Nothing else.
If 10 people tuned in, it wouldn't change what we do at all. It wouldn't change what we talk about. It wouldn't change how long we go on. Like, think about the TJ and the Grumpy Old Man. If we had 5 people showed up to that, well, I don't give a shit. We're still just going to talk about what we want to talk about, because it's like you're sitting there at the bar talking to your buddies and you're talking to the people that
sitting at your kitchen table.
Or sitting, whatever it is, and you're just talking with everybody. It's like there's no other reason for this and for this show than that exact purpose. That's the only reason we have it. And other than that, it's not something I need. It's not something I need to do. It's not something I feel like, oh, gotcha. If I didn't do this, I still have a phone that I could call Grumpy to. I'll put it to you that way. So,
I mean, when I'm told that I'm dug in on my takes, well, but dude, my takes are right. Why would I change when my takes are correct?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the takes on Noah Dobson, which were so incredibly stupid, right? Did I tell this person that his take was stupid? I knew it was, because he's the most talented defenseman that we have. I knew this 2 years ago. It's so obvious. If you have eyes, you could see it.
It's the fact that
that's what pissed me off. Coming after TJ is a fucking mistake for anybody who does it, because you really don't want to get me on your bad side.
Grumpy.
I'm serious about that.
So here's the thing. I think a lot of fans want to always be optimistic about the result. I think they do. And I'm not sure at this point, right? There could be optimism if Patrick Waugh comes in and things change. I just say, I don't think I think it's a deeper seated problem. And I think it's going to be more than just, hey, we just need to cut off and trim the tree a bit. Well, the tree, the limbs underneath, the roots underneath have started to crack the foundation of the house, and the thing needs to be dug up. I mean, that's the nicest way to put it. Grant Hakeem, what's up, Grant? He says here,
Hey guys,
"Hey
hope you're all
guys."
well. Justin Bieber has had more success with Barzy than any other Islanders coach.
He has. They did win today here.
He's losing
Matthew
on
S.
defense.
said,
Talk about the Sean Monahan trade. Montreal got a nice haul. Think about it. I think they picked up, was it a first or a second round pick to take his contract from Calgary, excuse me. And then they get a first and a third, was it?
first and a third, trading him away. First and a conditional third.
I mean, I think they got a first or a second also from Calgary to take his contract.
Not bad. And that was 2 years ago, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty good.
And the guy's only been only produced for them. He didn't produce in Calgary, but it's like they signed him to a 1-year extension for nothing, and they get assets back. It's nice. Good. I think that Marty St. Louis, not the right coach. I mean, when we watched how sloppy that team was, how many times they tried to find ways to lose, you could tell guys who were just not meant to be the coach. You could tell guys that are. I like Marty St. Louis as a player. He's just not cut out to be a coach.
The problem with Marty St. Louis, well, not with Marty St. Louis. The problem with Montreal is they feel that they have to get a coach who speaks French Canadian. It's like maybe they should have went after Patty Waugh.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know if he's still on the outs with the organization from all those many years ago.
Maybe,
but I mean, that's a detriment to getting the best coach. I think it's a problem.
David D.
We need to stop giving up first and second rounders for third line players unless it's for a younger player. Stop giving up picks for aging players. Absolutely.
Yep. Frank Grumpy.
I hope Pellick's okay. I don't want to trade for another defenseman. I feel like we have 27 defensemen. We really don't, but we're tied up. Think about it. Mayfield, 7 years. Pulak and Pellick, 7 years each. Then they're going to try to re-sign Dobson. They're going to try to re-sign Romanoff. So what are you going to give these guys? 2-year deals? I mean, just to get them the free agency? That's another Lamoriello staple. Get a guy up to free agency, then lose him for nothing. I mean, I don't know. You got 3 guys who are there for the long haul, who you're going to have wildly diminishing returns on.
Grumpy, or Gungun says, Grumpy, which movie?
In the movie Sideways, which character did you relate to more, Miles or Jack? I'm going to say neither. Now, I do enjoy Sideways with Paul Giamatti and Thomas Hayden Church. We're both in there. He played his friend Jack. Miles was Paul Giamatti. It was about, well, I'm not going to go what it was about, but if you've seen it, absolutely a wonderful watch, directed by Alexander Payne. The Holdovers is on Peacock, which is Paul Giamatti's in that. Alexander Payne, again, as a director. I didn't think it was as good as Sideways, but good. I didn't identify with either one, to be honest with you. Rick Rowe says, Montreal got a first-round pick to take Monahan, then flipped him for another first. 2 firsts for Monahan, and his bad hip is just good business. Absolutely. That's how you take an asset and you get the most you can for it. Because guess what? By the time Montreal's good again, Sean Monahan was going to be long gone. I don't care how many points he had this year. That's what you do. That's what good teams do.
Now, here's the thing. Montreal does a lot of things poor.
Yep.
One thing they do well is have good asset management.
Yes,
that is the easiest thing to do well if you do not let the current possibility for a hope and a prayer of success. And I mean a hope and a prayer. It's different if you're on the cusp and that close, right? I said it was always different when we were back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals. Right now, it's not. You got to show. You got to show it. You can't say, well, 2 years ago we did this. 3 years ago we did this. 4 years. No.
Different time.
Different players, different coach. Everything different. Players older. It's, so again, but you're right. This is called good asset management. Montreal does a lot of things wrong, but one thing they did really well in this one was have good asset management. And hats off to Montreal. That was a good job by them. The entire Sean Monahan saga for them turned out as an A++.
I mean, think about it. They got a first-round pick for a defenseman who doesn't play any position at all. He's a detriment to whoever he's on the ice with.
13th overall pick.
13th overall pick was the pick.
Rick
We got
Roma
Kirby Doc in that deal too. Think about it. I mean, Kirby Doc's out for the year, but they're building up assets. That's a good thing. Rick Roma says, and here's the thing, if we don't make the playoffs, what's the difference between us and Montreal? Montreal's got a future and we don't. That's a difference. Rick Roma says, if Brock could get a late first and a prospect, would you trade him right now? Obviously, Lou isn't doing that. If I got myself a young prospect and I think I would do it. I would do it. It had to be a guy like a young and a good player, not just another guy we could project onto the third line.
Not a guy like, hey, Matthew Maggio is 2 years over age in the OHL, and he led the league in scoring. Not a prospect like that, a legitimate bona fide top-end prospect.
A top-end prospect and a first. Yeah, absolutely, I would do that. Why? Brock Nelson's 32 years old. By the time we're good again, he's going to be long gone. You get yourself a first-round pick that could turn out to be nothing, but you get yourself a prospect who's young, 19, 20-year-old tops, but like maybe their top prospect. That's what you want for a guy like Brock Nelson. If he's available, he's probably the top player on the market if they make him available right now.
Look at, just by the way, Brad Lambert, 20 years old. You remember we were talking about him on draft night saying, man, wouldn't it be smart if the Islanders traded up to go ahead and get a guy like Brad Lambert? Now 20 years old.
He went at 24.
No, I thought he went later than that, my friend. 30.
No.
Yeah, he was at the tail, and
Winnipeg.
I mean the tail end. Yeah, Winnipeg, the tail end of the first round. This guy was supposed to be consensus top 10 pick, and he didn't look so great. Well, the team he was playing on in the Finnish Elite League, I can't remember who it was. I don't remember, don't care to remember, but he had a drop off, and people were worried about his production. And we said you could see it, the talent's there. Look at it, watch his film. He's got it. He's got it.
Can you put his stats back up, please?
Sure.
Is that possible?
I'll pull him up. Yeah, I got to pull him back.
Yeah. What's the thing that you notice about Brad Lambert when we see the stats?
Okay, he's 20 years old.
Okay, not just that.
Pretty balanced.
You know what I think? He's more of an NHL player than a European player. That's what it says to me.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, like that.
And of course, his maturity as well. But what does he have that you can't? That is a talent that I feel every player should have. You got to have speed, team speed. Speed kills. You can get away with a lot of mistakes, Pierre Engvall. Just because you have speed. Of course, you get exposed when you try to take shots, but if you have speed, you can play in this league.
A prospect like that, I'd be happy with.
Yeah.
Right. Coming back in the other direction. Doesn't have to be, hey, this guy was a 3rd overall selection last year. This is NFL.
Doesn't matter.
Don't have to do anything like that. It just needs to be a guy who has legitimate bona fide talent. Robert Marshall, Grumpy.
That's the only reason Watt is here, Grumpy, to get his foot back in the door. I agree with that as well.
Joseph C. Yep, that's what remind me of Carl Hagelin there. Drew L. says here, I'm afraid
Lou is going to make a move where he gives up our first-round pick. Now that Pelech is returning, I just have that stomach churning feeling. Okay, then you're just let's say the Islanders make the playoffs. Who are they beating in the playoffs? We know they're not beating Carolina. I don't care that they've had a couple of wins against Carolina this year. When it comes to nut cutting time, they're not beating Carolina. They're just not. I got to say that Peter Kochetkov is not going to be in net. He's not going to be giving up 5 or 6 goals a game.
Yeah. David D says here, Trey Barzal, well, he's the second best player on our team, or second best player on our team,
okay.
Period.
If somebody offered you 2 firsts, 2 twos for Matt Barzal, would you do it? I would.
It depends. If we committed to saying let's rebuild.
Yeah, it's not just him.
I was about to say, if you're just trading him, no. But if you said we're gonna rebuild from scratch, be shitty for a while, but we're gonna commit to a full rebuild, then sure.
I think there's only 4 players on this team that I would commit to in a rebuild: Barzal, Horvat, Sorokin, and Dobson. That's it. Everybody else is available. And for the right deal, of course, everybody else is available.
Michael Boucher says, I'm hoping Wally would get to play. I'm hoping he does too, but I'll be interested to see what he does. I hope he gets a legitimate shot here. Rick Roma says the Islanders have 1 center, 1 defenseman,
a number 1 center, a number 1 D-man, a number 1 goalie, which are the 3 key components. A different GM could have turned this around fairly quickly, but the Pageos and Palmieri's are hindering this team. That's what happens when guys get in their 30s. Their game usually just falls off the planet.
Rick Roma says Holmstrom doesn't suck. Be fair, Grumpy.
He's a serviceable third line player. I stick by that. He's a serviceable. Here's the thing. You notice his shorthanded goals are drying up. Matter of fact, they've dried up because teams realize, oh shit, this is what the Make-A-Wish kid does.
Joseph C.
He goal hangs. Joseph C says, I think elite goaltenders steal games they have no business winning. Not happening this year. Sorokin has to be better. It's not Sorokin's fault. I'm just going to say it again. It's not Sorokin's fault. He's getting just peppered with
Sorokin has been better. Yeah, here's the thing. He has been better. But the thing with goalies is you don't expect goalies to play at a Vezina caliber year in, year out. Even look at the guys who win Vezinas. You don't win Vezina after Vezina after Vezina after Vezina. It doesn't happen like that.
The team defense is markedly worse this year. You're giving up 35, 36 shots a game. I mean, I'm sorry. That's why he's given up more goals. You can't be everywhere at once.
I got a comment here from Drew L. Says here, I think Holmstrom's at his peak, and will be.
He thinks Holmstrom at his peak.
I'm sorry,
will be a half a point a player per game. Okay,
perhaps. And now it's like, is that what we say? That's top six.
Nope.
That's my thing. On a bad team, maybe that's top six, but that's, again, what are you aspiring to be? If the expectation is, well, on team here, when there's some injuries, this could be a player who's a top six player. No, you really want a top six guy who is able to foot the bill and looks like he's more of a net positive than a net negative. Remember.
And I would not include Holmstrom in a deal as a sweetener. I wouldn't do that because he's 22 and he still has some upside.
And he's under team control. He's under team control.
That's right. He's young and under team control for at least 5 more years.
You hold on to him just in case, though. The very rare case that he becomes the next William Karlsson. Swizzly says here, tell him, Grump.
Yeah.
Island Puck Hockey says, just to fact check you guys, definitely at the end of last season, you said Holmstrom isn't NHL. Yes, I said that. Absolutely. I said I don't think he's an NHLer. Grumpy recanted, or Grumpy said he never said that. I told him just as we said it. We said he was not a consistent everyday NHLer. And I respect how you modified your opinion, and I agree with your current assessment on the bottom. Say, well, thank you, Islands Puck Hockey. Well, thank you. Here's the thing. We are not.
Okay. Everything we talk about is a snapshot in time. Okay, everything's when you're doing 2 shows a week on the New York Islanders for 2.5, however many hours a day, a week
podcast.
You know what? Everything you do is a snapshot. Last year, he absolutely sucked. I felt this year he was forced in the lineup. His poor play, even the beginning of the year, he wasn't that good. He's found life on the third line and on the penalty kill. And here's the thing. Maybe our penalty kill isn't great because he's goal hanging, looking for breakaway opportunities.
Yeah.
I mean,
one of the worst penalty kills in the NHL.
I mean, we were 31st. A couple of weeks ago, I don't know what we are now. But here's the thing. Eventually, those goals dry up, right? He had like 5 shorthanded goals in like a month. And it's kind of dried up since then. And so was his production.
Okay. Yes, but thank you, Island Puck Hockey. Absolutely. I don't think we're the dug in on our statements. I just think is inaccurate. We're not. We do move when it requires to do so, and we do move when we see that's been that. I've moved on Bo Horvat. I have no problem admitting that. I was very critical of him at the beginning. I mean, so like just to say that, I think is just I don't know. It was just somebody who doesn't watch the show coming on and trying.
I said that on the clip that was released this week. I said that I think he's Michael Grabner. That part was just left out.
Robert Marshall says here, yes, Rick. Plus, Clutterbuck, Martin, Fashing are just wasting roster spots. Absolutely. Rick Rock says here, Bo and Barzy are our heart and soul. Dobson, our backbone. Ilya, our fortress. Wah will be the wizard to build a fiery team.
I hope so. That's what we all hope for.
I really do. I want to get back to where I could see the light at the end of the tunnel again.
I want him to succeed so badly. I can't even tell you. I want him to be the general manager of this team.
Yes.
That's what I want. That's what I want.
Frank says Holmstrom is loose pet. He had to prove this podcast that he could draft well. LOL. No. JP says here, I don't know, Grumpy. I can name Lady Bing candidate winners that weren't soft, but Holmstrom is soft. I'd rather have Wah as the general manager and bring in Craig Berube, the coach. I think our team is very similar to that Blues team.
I'm not going that far.
I don't know.
They had talent on that team. They did.
Brett W says here, it seems they thought more of Bailey than Holmstrom for a time.
Because Holmstrom is Bailey 2.0 for me. That's what he is.
Think about all the Lamanites who were like, oh, Josh Bailey, he's an elite player. He's a this, he's a that. My God.
Never was.
Grabner was a great for a third liner, though.
Yeah.
LOL. Plus, Garth Snow got him off of waivers. So it was a major win in that aspect. Yeah.
That's right.
Anything that was cheap, like you think about Garth Snow. How did he have to find players to fill his roster? Waivers.
Yeah.
Drafts. I mean, like there was no such thing as we can get a big name free agent or offer money to bring in a big name free agent. There was no, besides one, there was no let's trade for a big guy at the deadline and add some players. We didn't really do that. Rick Roma, Grumpy.
Sunex isn't a fourth line player in the NHL. Oh my God. In the NHL, but he's a first line player in all of our hearts, man. Oh man. Man, Rick knows. He just knows how to pluck those X strings. Bing, bing, bing.
Joseph C.
Grabner's only special skill was his speed. He was arguably the fastest skater in the league at one point. Absolutely. And that benefited him on the penalty kill.
Frank says Sunex is sort of like a rich man's Holmstrom.
Oh, wow. What a slam to X.
Sorry, X. I know you don't watch any hockey, but that's not a compliment. Robert Marshall says here, Pelech has been horrible for 2 seasons now without the injuries. Yeah, he's not been the same player he has been. And now here's the other thing, too. Pulock struggled last year also. And when he was paired with Romanoff earlier this year, he was struggling mightily, too. So, I don't know. We'll see.
He's just not... Okay, he and Pulock had, particularly the first year, they were a dynamic defense pairing. And they've just gone downhill ever since. I mean, that's why you don't – I just thought those contracts – I know the money was good, but it was 8 years for defensemen who, when the contract's going to be 28 years old, going to be until the 36. What's Pelech going to look like when he's 36?
Drew L says here, the funniest and stupidest thing that the Lamanites claim is that TJ and Grumpy are gluttonous for the team to suck. It's like no, the only way that we can get better is if we move on from Lou and rebuild.
That's right. 100% right. 100%.
And all we're doing now, until we officially do that, is we're wasting time. We're wasting years. We're wasting our life away.
We've explained this to the moronic Lamanites numerous times. I'll say it again. We want the team to be good, better than you do. We're willing to suffer a little bit of media pain to get back to the top of the mountain. This group is not going to make that happen.
Speaking about mountain analogies, we're halfway up the mountain with no food, no water left. And fuck, if we're falling back down, we're going to have to go to the ashes and rise up as a phoenix to get back to the top. We're going to have to fucking die in order to go all the way back up and get another shot. We do not have the supplies to make it to the top of the mountain at this point. And until we go ahead and admit that and say how the first item is we admit that we're not good enough to do it. Once we do that, that is when you can actually start making legitimate changes. You first have, that's the thing that drives me nuts about the team, which makes it feel so hopeless, is the team is not good enough. But our general manager and ownership, by keeping our GM here, will not admit that the team is not good enough to win a cup.
You have to have better talent. How do you do that? You draft better. You actually have first round picks. Sometimes you have to go back down to the bottom to come back up the top. The worst teams are the ones who are stuck in middle management. You're just stuck there. You're in the middle of the pack forever. It means nothing. You're never going to win anything. I want to win Stanley Cups. The Lamanites, I just want to be competitive. I want to, we want to make, if we can make the playoffs, hey, that'd be great. You go Islanders. I get 2 playoff games at home. I'm sorry. That's not conducive to winning. We want here's the thing. I think we want the team to win more than they do because we see what has to happen for this team to get good. They're just not smart enough yet to figure it out. Eventually they will, and they'll say, you know what? That TJ and grumpy old man, they were right.
They
We should have done this 5 years
They
ago.
never will. They never will, because most people don't admit those type of things where there have been times when they're right and times when they're wrong. Most people are unwilling to do that.
That's right.
I don't think we're like that on this show.
We're not.
I strive to be as honest as I can and as try to be as optimistic as I can at times, but it's really tough doing that these days. That's for certain. The going back down to go back up. I'll use another Olympics analogy. Do you remember Michael Phelps won by like the fingertips? He got his fingertips on there first because he went back down then to get that extra swing over the top in order to win by, it was like 100th of a second, while that one guy just stayed down there at the bottom. Sometimes you have to go back up. You got to go back down in order to have that legitimate shot. You've got to take a step back to restructure the organization to be a legitimate contender.
And as we've said on this show 100 times, if the Lamanites actually listen, but I know it's probably a struggle for them. I forgot what I was going to say.
I know you did.
I was too busy slamming the Lamanites to
you need to stay on target, Grumpy. You're just too busy. Peter M says here, it's not Vetrano's contract year.
Is it not?
No, I don't think so. But he's on a cheap deal, I believe. There, he's 29 years old. He's about to be 30. So that's why I was like, that's why people like Vetrano. But yeah, I'll pull up his contract. I think he's got 1 year left after this one here. He signed a 3-year deal. He's making $3.6 million per. Yeah, he's got 1 more year after this year.
At 29 years old,
he'll be 30 next month.
If I'm Anaheim, I'm moving him. Why not? He gets you something. Career year. Move him.
You're going to get more value trading a guy on a reasonable deal to give a team 2 years with the player than 1. If Anaheim's smart and has good asset management, they're trading him this year. Anthony Rizzi. Hey, guys, thumbs up. That's right. Thumbs up, guys, here. Matthew S. Grumpy.
Grump is right. We have no space. We can barely have any with Pollock off LTR and someone else on LTR. I think
LTIR.
Long-term injury. I don't think we don't have anyone else on long-term injury.
Bertuzzo is on long-term injury.
No,
he's on long-term injury. Yes.
Okay. Well, is Casey on there too? Because it shows Casey's on injured reserve as well as Bertuzzo. Not long-term injury, just injured reserve.
Goon Grump.
Another boneheaded non-move similar to the Islanders' Tavares was when the Mets held on to Jose Reyes since he was chasing that useless batting title in 2011 in his walk year. Where were their brains in low gear? Yeah, the Mets. Jose Reyes.
Jose Reyes. Thanks, Rizzy. Yes, thumbs up. Hit it. There it is. John Smith, Grumpy.
I think there's a glitch in the matrix. Grump is in a loop.
Oh, goodness. Grumpy.
That's possible.
Tony Cheese says here, this is the only podcast where you can hear Unga Bunga non-ironically.
Unga Bunga.
Rick Roma. Very rarely do you ever hear a hockey podcaster drop a vagina monologue reference.
That's right.
Rob G said here, how do you like the change of coach? I think it absolutely could be for the good. And I think the best thing that can happen is he changes the culture here. And I think Patrick Waugh is the right man for that.
For me, it's a clean set of eyes coming into the organization. And like I said, I'm hoping beyond hope he's the next general manager sooner rather than later.
But yes. So Rob, hey, here's our real negativity. I think that Patrick Waugh absolutely can be a solution here, but it just takes the man upstairs, the general manager, to cooperate and to work well with him, or to be moved out in the process.
And this is what I want. This is what I want to say before. We have said the tenor of this podcast will change if we see the team going in the right direction. Absolutely. Until that happens, yeah, it's not going to be, hey, this is we're the greatest team ever. No, because we're not. That's why if you want to come here, if you listen to this show, honestly, for just realism, it's just real. We're not going to blow smoke up your ass. Oh man, this guy's great. This guy's not. This guy's great. Ooh, look at him. He could turn out to be William Karlsson. Woo!
Rick Roma. Grumpy, we're at 2 hours and 12 minutes. So
that's okay. You're not going to hear that here.
Rick Roma. First round for Vetrano. Lou is going for it.
That'd be another mistake.
Drew L. Grumpy.
Didn't Lou Just
Yes, he
have
did.
to take the
Thank
loss.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Yes, I saw that online too. Rob G said here the Islanders can't be off on their play because they don't have the depth quality players to make up for it.
True.
Vetrano is such a Lou player. I can feel it coming. Oh, God.
Mistake.
I hope not. Frank Grumpy said, I love Vetrano, but no first round, no first round for a home take, for home, or take a second and throw in Gauthier. LOL. Yeah, I don't think they'll take that, but yeah,
Why? What does Frank Verdano, first of all, makes too much money to be on this team? Sorry, it's not going to happen. Again, we are going to have at the deadline $1 million to spend. A player whose cap hit is $1 million. That's it. Frank Vetrano does not qualify as that player.
Drew L says here, like I said, it's a shit show of a team and is why I haven't invested my time into watching their games for the last 2.5 months. I'm watching them again once Lou gets fired or retires.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. And the weird thing is, I think Lou would never actually get fired. I think he'll step down, and that will be like the club parting ways with him, perhaps. JP says here, the Islanders got to trade Nelson. I 100% agree. Yep, absolutely. But this team is competing for a Stanley Cup, or at least we think we are. Goon says, when Sun X and Grumpy have to do their own or do a show or two during TJ's new fatherhood, why don't you have a portion of the show, your pop,
a la your pop culture podcast you keep talking about? It could be a good dry run, funny fun.
Well,
It maybe could, particularly if the Islanders go on a long losing streak. Like we could talk about what movie represents the Islanders franchise, like Titanic, for instance.
Goon.
Why wasn't Tavares invited to the All-Star game? Is he to blame? He wasn't invited because he wasn't good enough.
Flex crew. He says here, all I want to say about Holmstrom is give him time. Like you guys said about Dobson, I'll say the same for Holmstrom. His ceiling isn't as high as Dobson, but he's young and he's a kid who has shown growth. Give it time. Now, yeah, we're not trying to flex crew. We're not trying to move him off of this team, but I think a comparison now to Michael Grabner is actually I think it could be a very apt comparison. Michael Grabner had over 50 plus points in the season, over 30, was it 38 or 34 goals? I mean, that's a very quality bottom six guy.
But you notice the goals to assist ratio is kind of similar. So he's goal dependent.
Yeah.
And you don't get that without shooting percentage as well.
Yeah, he doesn't shoot the puck a lot. But here's the thing. With Dobson, we always talked about this because this is another thing people were trying to say. Well, not saying you, Flex, but people are trying to say here online, hey, Dobson, hey, you guys are Dobson doesn't happen that often. Dave, you guys just stayed in that camp. That's the reason you got to write it because you weren't willing to move. Well, we talked about the reason Noah Dobson struggled early in his career. We made it very clear. We talked about it last year at the end of the season. We talked about it in this offseason, why he'll take a step forward if he's paired with the right partner. His first 4 or 5 years in the NHL, he was paired with Johnny Boychuk in the last year of his NHL career. He was paired 2 years with Andy Green, or 2.5 years with Andy Green or so, who was at the end of his NHL career. 2 years. Yeah, the last 2 years of Andy Green's career, and the last 2 years of his career. Zdeno Chara in the last year of his NHL career. And then Sebastian Aho, after the Alexander Romanov experiment went wrong for the first 15 to 20 games. So he was paired with a guy that now is consensus number 7 defenseman on this team that people are like, why the hell is he on the ice? So he was paired with the shittiest defenseman. And people are like, well, this is why he grew into the player he is today, is because he was paired with guys like Chara and Green, and he was paired with guys like Boychuk.
Wrong. You could see when he went to the boards to get the puck, the way he shielded teams away, just little subtle movements. We saw all that. Okay. It was being shackled with old partners, finished players, and Romanov.
Guys who couldn't skate. Think about that.
That's right.
Boychuk, Chara, and Green couldn't skate.
And he was trying to do too much, which gets him in trouble even to this day. When Romanov's in his pairing and he starts trying to cover for Romanov, he gets exposed. He absolutely does, still to this day, because he tries to do too much, and sometimes it gets him in trouble. For me, That was the thing with that. But you want to know why we didn't get off of that take? Because we're right. That's why. I'm not getting off a take that I know I'm going to be right on. That's what I don't do. And if I am wrong on something, I'm the first one to admit it on this show.
I haven't seen a reason to adjust. I haven't seen a just reason to change the opinion. Until I see a reason to do that, I won't.
And I feel better about Holmstrom if he even went to fight for a puck along the boards. I don't like, I admit it, I do not like players like that, guys who are afraid of the wall. To me, it's awful tough to be successful at a high level if you're not willing to go into a corner and come out with a puck. It's really, really tough.
All righty. JP Grumpy.
I'm not going to worry at this point if Nelson's a fan favorite or not. He's literally the only option to get back a haul at this point for the Islanders. And that's not true. You could move Noah Dobson for a boatload.
You talk about blowing up a team. He's probably a guy that has to be moved along with it too.
Yeah.
And that's the important, that's going to be the unfortunate casualty of poor asset management.
Perhaps.
That's what's going to be.
Rest in peace. Smith. I'm glad we have Scott Mayfield and Pierre Engvall, but we had to get rid of Dobson.
Okay. Rob G says here, I think Holmstrom is coming along really great. I think in the near future, he could be a point a game player. I think Rob's just messing around. I don't think Rob thinks that, but maybe he does.
You realize his points have kind of dried up recently, right?
Think about this. Matty Barzal was a point a game player his rookie season and wasn't again until this year on this team, and he is far more talented than him. Anyway, Freedom Fund Adventure, Grumpy.
Why is TJ and X into weird stuff like Phil and Andy Francis? I sent that.
We hooping Phil and Andy Francis.
I deliberately avoided saying we hooping. Thank you. I sent that POS TJ, 2 hysterical comedians doing short sports bits, and he ignored it like a punk ass bitch.
I will check my emails. I do not check these emails at all. So it's been months. I probably need to check them. It's not me being, I just don't check them. Sorry. Rick Roma says here, was looking at some comments on Twitter about you guys, and you were both getting destroyed. Grumpy, you're going to love being on Twitter.
Here's the thing. I could care less what anyone thinks. Play it. I could care less about the team struggles.
Oh, is this what you're looking for?
Yeah.
I couldn't care less about the team struggling.
That's how I feel about the Lamanites or any of the fucking hammerheads who try to come at me. Because at the end of the day, like I said to a certain member who was on the podcast recently, tell me when I was wrong. And you know what? You know how you could tell they didn't have an answer? You didn't see their mouth moving. Yeah. Because they couldn't. When I'm wrong, tell me.
Frank K. Grumpy, we're trying to wrap this podcast up.
All right, don't worry. 20 minutes. Stop telling me what to do. I don't like it. Rumor is Triple H may be gone too. They're saying he knew what was going on and turned a blind eye. Well, he wasn't in charge. So I'm going to have I don't know. He's still kind of defending Vince a little bit, which is a problem.
Freedom Fund Adventure.
I said when Gauthier signed, he was unnecessary. Exactly. And didn't understand 2 years. Nobody did. Glad he was waived. With Calgary trading 2 centers and seeing return, it means return for Nelson would be massive. It would be.
Yep.
But you have to be willing to pull the trigger. You have to say, you know what? This group is not working. Let's move on. Rob G says, trade Brock, then you won't have a 30 or 40. Okay, he's never scored 40. You won't have a 30-plus goal scorer on your team, maybe Horvat. Well, so what? Guess what? Someone else will score the goals. Every team, even somebody will score goals for your team.
Okay, Rob, we have to take a step back in order to go forward. I think is just the main take of it. You're going to have to be bad. You're going to have to take a step backwards, be worse in the standings in order to rebuild the team, and that could be a multi-year effort. But the longer you prevent this, the longer you have the worst prospect pool in the NHL. It means that time frame may take, instead of 7 years, 10 or 12. Go ahead, Grumpy. Drew.
Okay, but just think, point percentage wise, Rob, we're 12th in the conference with him. What's the difference without him? Drew says, you know what's great? Being able to talk politics with friends and not having to worry about them being sensitive and cry about my opinions. It is.
Freedom Fund Adventure says, Garth Snow helped create the cul-de-sac culture. Party boy himself, excuse machines. Players earned the right. And Tavares isn't the only asset he failed to trade and get a return for. Also, Okposo and Nelson. Yeah.
True.
Yep. Wong paid Tavares. So when Snow was referring to ownership, he meant the current owners.
He was trying to negotiate with him for years.
Okay, my little brownie here says, Frank, I don't remember. I'll have to go look it back up. Frank says, or Frank, that was a terrible read. I think Grumpy and TJ need a bit of a vacay. I sense burnout. It's not burnout. It's just like you run into it's at that point of the season where people still are entrenched in this viewpoint that this is a Stanley Cup contender, and we've seen it 2 years ago, last year, and this year that they're not. And it's like people get to fighting you online. It's just like, my God, dude. I'm like, and a month from now, you'll be telling everybody, oh, well, this is what needs to happen. And this is the reason why we didn't get it done. And you'll be making fucking excuses again. It's just like, fuck. It's the same song and dance. And at this point, when you resist what is, that's when suffering begins, is the most apt way I can put it. James F. Grumpy.
Can you believe Cliff Kingsbury turned down the Raiders OC job because he wanted a 3-year contract? The Raiders offered 2. I hear he's the favorite now for Washington.
Yeah. Goon.
This is a gentler, kinder Grumpy tonight. Is it merely because the mood is right? See, people think I'm kind and gentle.
There you go. Freedom Fund Adventure.
Grumpy, I remember your theory that guys' performances get a lot worse after having a kid. You were talking about Shesterkin. Is TJ's performance actually going to get worse after Liza arrives?
Yes, it will. Get prepared, Isles fans. There it is.
It's possible.
Matthew C. says, game over, Lou. Grump for team president and GM. Grumpy Drew L.
I love how everyone is bored of the Islanders that we're talking about freaking Cliff Kingsbury. Lou, you got to step up your marketing.
Yeah.
Maybe they should have those jerseys are going to sell like hotcakes.
Yeah, that's it. Frank Grumpy said, I hate when TJ says anything can happen. LOL makes my ears bleed. Yeah. That's how it makes me feel when freaking idiot fans say anything can happen. It's just ridiculous. It's stupid. It's rooted in complete hope. It's rooted in hope and faith, not in actual realism. Frank Grumpy.
That's true, Grumpy old man. Varley got like $5 million. Yes, no, it was $5 million the first contract, 3.75.
Yes. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about he got $5 million. He got $5 million, yes. And that was a shit ton.
Yes, with a question mark on it. You see, there's question marks. It's not a statement. It's a question. Those things are called freaking question marks. You non-literate bastard. They're question marks.
He said, that's true, Grumpy old man. Varley got like 7 million, comma. Yes, that's what he meant to say.
Don't try to cover up your incompetence by that.
Freedom Fund Adventure says here, TJ, when you are too old to go out and enjoy the world, you'll regret every second you wasted arguing with those weirdos like Phil and Andy online. Spend time with family and take your fat ass to the gym. There it is. James or Anthony James says here, hey guys, checking in from Perth, Western Australia. Let's fucking go Islanders.
You know, the warden has always wanted to go to Australia.
You should go. Why have you not gone? Australia looks like a freaking blast.
That's a long plane flight, man. That's a long flight.
Why, dude? Who gives a shit, Grumpy? We're not going to make it there. Come on,
I don't know. Hey,
travel.
I don't want to take. I really don't like riding on a plane unless absolutely necessary. Certainly not a long flight. A lot of stuff can go wrong.
Grumpy, take a flight. You're going to fly like to LAX, and then you're going to fly there from California.
Forget that. I ain't going there.
Grumpy, Grumpy, the warden. You know what? The warden should go without you. Leave your ass home, Grumpy. Is what she should do.
Say it, Grump. He's a backup. That's what
Frank Grumpy.
I miss old movies and TV. Just glanced at King of Queens tonight, which I used to watch. Even that little show kills today's TV. Absolutely. Everything's horrible.
No, Grumpy old man, you can't trade Barzal. Are you kidding me? What is your infatuation with picks? Which work out 15 to 20% of the time, if that. If the team, here's the thing, Frank, if the team determined to rebuild because of poor and incompetent management, we have nothing in the system. We're going to have to sell off pretty much anything that is sellable.
We have nothing coming up. Nothing. We are ranked as the worst farm system in the NHL.
Yep. And here's the thing. We had years where we could have started the process. But because we didn't, we have the worst prospect pool in the NHL. And guess what? When we start selling pieces, it's going to piss me off. We're probably going to have to sell Dobson away. We're probably going to have to sell anybody who's young and who has ability and talent that other teams are going to want and have value. We're going to have to sell those pieces away. Bruce Harper, Grumpy.
Do you feel the Islanders would benefit from training for Evgeny Kuznetsov so we could improve our center depth? Trading for Kuznetsov? No.
Yeah, we don't need any more. Yeah.
If Washington's moving him, what does that mean?
He hasn't panned out well for them in a while, but like Washington. Here's the thing: Washington needs to fully commit to rebuilding now. There's no way they can think that team is good enough to win a Stanley Cup. And here's the thing: Pittsburgh should look at their team and say, "We're not good enough either." They should. They're not. They can make the postseason. They're not good enough to win a Stanley Cup.
Nope.
And at that point, what are you doing? You're wasting potential years that you can give away value of Crosby, Malkin, Letang, etc., Carlson, and instead of getting draft picks back in return, you're just wasting time.
Pittsburgh's biggest problem is their best players and who are producing the best are the older guys. That's their problem. I mean, like I said, I see why they're doubling down because their best guys are their older guys. It's not like Matt Barzal here. It'd be like having, I don't know, one of the old ham and eggers. It's like having Matt Martin be your best player.
Grump.
Is there a difference in taste between skim milk and whole milk? Yeah, skim milk is like drinking chalk water, and whole milk is like drinking some type of milk sludge.
Rob G says here, TJ, you should get a job with the Islanders organization. LOL. I would never accept a job with the Islanders organization. Robert Marshall says that's why no teams have 81-year-old general managers. He hasn't won in over 20 years.
There you go. There's a reason.
If every year there's a new Stanley Cup champion and he's been a general manager for the last 20 years and 20 teams have won Stanley Cups over that time, or there have been 20 Stanley Cups handed out that time period, well, he should have a pretty good chance of winning a Stanley Cup in 20 years if he's been a GM there for the last 20, shouldn't he have?
Well, I mean, look at Toronto, right? You can say, and I don't think Toronto is good enough to win a cup, but you could say that Toronto is a better team than we are for certain, more of a competitor than we are, or a contender. They had him in there a year and a year and a half, and they kicked him upstairs because they didn't like what he was doing. Those are just facts. Again, facts.
True and fun adventure.
The Lamanites are professional attention seekers. This show falls into their trap constantly. Not Son X. He's too smart for that shit. They want you responding and talking about them. Smarter than you two.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking. I think, I was like, probably they do. And I don't know.
You know what my response would be anytime they said, suck it, Lamanites? That'd be my response.
Michael Boucher.
Nito Niederreiter is from Switzerland, not Austria. I think he was saying that Michael Grabner was from Austria.
Yes. And Vinny Smith.
Compare the Islanders fan base to others in the league. It's not easy to do. I think all fan bases are the same, basically.
Yeah, and the thing with us too,
there are worse fan bases than us.
There absolutely are. So I gotta take our fan base with a grain of salt. But like, how bad is Vancouver's fan base?
I don't think they're that bad.
That's what I was about to say. There are a lot better fan bases than ours too, though. Yeah. There's a lot that are a lot worse than ours. So what a shock. We're middle of the pack with our fan base too. Row Gamer says planes are worse than music, TJ. Ugh, no, planes are fine. Rob G said here, how are we supposed to think rebuild when our general manager isn't going to allow it? Yeah, he won't. That's what, yes, Lou Lamoriello won't allow a rebuild. He still thinks the team is good enough to win a cup. Eventually, Lou Lamoriello's reign over this team will end. Whether that's this year, if we don't make, if we don't make the postseason this year, could you imagine Lou Lamoriello still being our general manager?
No.
I just have that vomit-inducing fear of like, holy shit, we could not make the playoffs this year and he'll still be GM.
I don't see how you don't make playoffs 2 out of 3 years. 2 out of 3 years would be 2 out of 3. Yeah, 2 out of 3. When particularly the first year was Stanley Cup or bust. And then you got rolled by a team missing 3 top 6 forwards and playing a backup goalie who let everything right through his body to even make it 6 games in that series. But you knew you were losing to Carolina. And then not make the playoffs again. How do you keep that GM? Especially when he's 81, 82, whatever year, however many years he is. I mean, at some point in time, it's time to move on, right? Patty Waugh, and here's the thing, maybe Patty Waugh doesn't work out. Then you know what? You just get the next guy. This guy can't do it. I want to give somebody else a chance. That's all.
Rick Roma says here, Grumpy and Andy Francis should be the main event at WrestleMania.
Win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat.
Oh man. Yeah, it's just, it's just the rivalry is, I like it. It's like, yeah, bring Andy on soon. The rivalry is red hot. Rick was also asking, when do you guys have an Andy back on? I like with guests, with guests, we need to get to a lot. Like there's a lot of people that I need to get to and reach out to that I'm like, oh yeah, I need to, like, usually we have Andy on like once every 6 months or somewhere around
Once
there.
a year.
There's enough time that goes by to where there's new items to talk about. And like he's really busy with what he does. But like there's like, okay, we need to get Nicole back on. We need to get Ariel back on. There's a lot of people we need to Tommy. There's like, okay, I want to get Daniel Freeman. There's a lot of people we got to get back on the show. And I'm like, okay, we got Kim. When's the last time we talked to Kim? I'm like, so that's about
Him.
I know. That's my fault. I'm not doing a good enough job there. There's a lot of people we need to get on, but I'm like,
you let that zipperhead brother of hers on before her.
I know Michael. I know Mike. I like Mike, and even Brandon Gaines. We got to.
I like him.
Okay, Grumpy is made. Okay, Grumpy's spoken. I will reach out to Kim. She'll be the first person I say, Kim, we got to find out when you can get on the show.
We're not putting any guests on when it's me and X. Don't even try that.
Oh God Almighty! It's because TJ will go on a streak of not inviting guests on the show for months on end, unless it's Phil. He's the only exception to the rule. I'm still waiting on Daniel Freeman, my fave.
I like Phil on the show.
I messaged Daniel today. I've got to start messaging people to get, but it's like for me, it's odd because I don't know exactly when my wife will give birth. So I don't want to schedule people 2 or 3 weeks in advance, if I'm not going to be there. So I'm trying to go almost like on a episode by episode basis at the moment. Grumpy, are you sure you're not a scout for the National Hockey League?
I'm sure.
All righty here. Look at the Canucks, how fast they become a top contender 1 year.
Okay. They were bad for a lot of years because they dedicated to the youth movement, trading away guys at the deadline, getting draft picks, and all their picks didn't work out. They hit on a couple of them, and they got the right coach, and Rick Tocchet, I believe, is still there.
Yep.
And he turned that team around. And they're going to be, here's the thing, salary cap gets every team, right? That's why you want to have the young guys, so you're not hamstrung cap-wise. They've done a great job. I like the Canucks. I'd love to see that. I'd love, if they won the Stanley Cup this year, I'd be ecstatic. Another team that's never won, I'd root for them.
You start looking at it. Okay, didn't make the playoffs last year. 15th didn't make the playoffs that year. I think in 2021, I'm looking at where they picked. They didn't make the playoffs that year. Did they make in 2020? I got to look up Vancouver because think about it. They had a lot of really down years.
Yes.
And they've been down ever since the Sedins got off of their peak in Luongo and Corey Schneider, ever since that. And that's a long time.
What, 2013, 2004? When did the Sedins retire?
I don't know. They're both in the Hall of Fame right now. So think about that. Okay. So they made on the play-in round of 2020. They won the play-in round to get into the playoffs and then lost.
Anything could have happened, but you know what happened? They lost.
So think about this. They lost in the first round in 2014-15. They've made the postseason twice in the last 10, 11 years. Well, they're going to make it this year. So twice in the last 10 years. But think about it, 10 years. Think about it. They were a whole hell lost in the semifinals, lost in the semifinals, lost in the Stanley Cup, quarterfinals. But that was the peak for that team. It was right there at the hey, look, they made it to back-to-back Western Conference finals. They lost. Next year they go to the Cup finals, and then it's all downhill from then.
Yep.
We made it to back-to-back Eastern Conference finals. It's already looked downhill for us. What do we think is going to happen?
But think about it. All right, 2007, 8, but you look at 06, 07, they lost to Anaheim. But then they had 6 out of 7 years where they made the playoffs, 3 semifinals appearances, a cup final appearance, and then 2 losses in the quarters. You could tell it was on the downside then, right? And I mean, they knew, and it's like, okay, time to start over. And it takes a while to rebuild. It's not like it happens overnight. It doesn't happen overnight. That's why it's going to be so painful. That's why I've always been preaching, hey, let's do a gradual transition, because when we don't make the playoffs, we're not going to make the playoffs for a long time.
I'm looking at them. They're actually somewhat competitive. I mean, well, besides this year, obviously 2016, 17. But I mean, like a 5th of 8, 4th of 8, 7 of 7. Well, that's not so great. 5 of 8. I mean,
okay. I mean, look at it. Even they came in 5th. They were 40 and 42 if you count losses and overtime losses. I mean, they haven't had a winning record.
Is that far off from where we're on pace for?
We're worse than that.
That's about to say, is that really far off a pace from where
actually,
we were?
I'm sorry. I think we're on an 87-point pace for this year.
Yeah, so we're worse than that. They had 92 points.
Okay. Yeah, there you go.
Man. Well, that sounds great. Yeah. Let's wrap things up here today. Okay. Oh, fuck. I haven't even started learning the names. I will not commit to learning any of the players in this year's draft class until I know verifiably we have not traded away our first-round pick at the trade deadline.
I'll read it. Silyev and Levshinov lead the loaded 2024 defensive NHL draft class. Again, I mean, do we need – hope we don't trade draft picks. I don't think we can trade away draft picks for the next, I want to say, 5-6 years. Cannot trade away first-round picks. Can't do it. Try to pick up extra ones. Move guys out.
Well, let's wrap this up. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in today. Thank you so much, Grumpy, for being a part of the show. Grumpy, is there anything you want to say before we wrap things up here today?
I want to say love and laughter to everyone who listens, and even those who don't, from TJ, the grumpy old man, and behind the cameras, Son X. That's it.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for watching the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for all the comments. Thanks always for the engagement. We appreciate it. We really do. We'll be with you guys here live. Wednesday. We'll be live Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks so much, guys, for watching. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thank you, Matthew. He says, good show. Hit the thumbs up, says Frank. Absolutely. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. We'll have it Wednesday or tomorrow on TJ and the Grumpy Old Man, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then on Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Robert Marshall says 5-star review. Thanks there, Robert. Thank you. We'll see you guys tomorrow, 8 p.m. and then on Wednesday, 8 p.m. Thanks, Grumpy.